like to call to order the work session. We have a couple of council people missing at the moment. I'm not sure where Councilwoman Loretano is, but Councilman Osborne is delayed at a MAG meeting downtown. So we'll just go ahead and begin. And so everybody else but those two are present. Yes, Wally's back up there. She's present. And the item for discussion on the agenda is the budget and the follow-up discussion from the April 25th, 2011 City Council budget work session. Before we begin, I'm going to ask you all, remember the last presentation, how we continually interrupted. It was because we were so interested and we had these burning questions that could not wait till the end of the presentation. In the meantime, we took that presentation home with us, and we were given this presentation early on. Although I am sure during the time that our city manager and staff briefs us, there'll be moments we'll all be like this. But if you want him to stop for a moment while you take a note to yourself, you may do that. Is that all right, John? I mean, if they feel like it's going too fast, because many times we have it in our mind, we think, if I wait till this presentation's done, I'm not going to remember what the question was. So we will. Is that good, everybody?
Do we want to go through the entire presentation and list our questions? Is that?
Yeah, that's what we'd like to do. Right. Is everybody in agreement?
Yep.
I don't.
Go ahead. That's fine.
Mr. Ellsworth, do I hear your head shaking?
Yes.
All right, or see it. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Fishback, it's yours.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. We hope to answer the remaining questions that you have this evening and make some progress, because the important thing is that we're nearing the end of the budget preparation. On this calendar, you'll see the May 16th work session, and that's reserved for follow-up for the balanced budget discussion work session that we had 2 weeks ago. It's important for the Council to provide direction tonight on any proposed changes that you want to see to the draft budget, because this must be approved at the May 23rd, which is the next week's meeting, and that sets just the maximum expenditure. The approval of the tentative budget per state statute sets the maximum expenditure that the city can spend. You can't spend more than that. You can't adopt a budget that's higher than that. So theoretically, I mean, you could adopt a $500 million budget and we could still work on it. But that's why we're recommending a $213 million budget. The final adoption of the budget and the property tax levy then is scheduled for June 27th. And the property tax adoption, which is the final step in the fiscal year 12 budget, is scheduled for July 11th, just before the council goes dark for the summer. This presentation is going to be probably 45 minutes or thereabouts, and we'll be happy to answer any questions. We have the rest of the evening set aside for discussions on the budget, plus the executive session that we're recommending we have. But there is no meeting tonight, so that's basically it. The agenda this evening is the budget history, the employee compensation and benefits, the fiscal year 12 revenues and expenditures, property taxes and city sales taxes, general fund operating budget, fiscal year 12 new costs and one-time uses, the capital improvement program, major operating funds, summary and council direction on the final budget, and council discussion and questions. From a budget history, entering the 21st century, the nation, and more specifically the state of Arizona, just had an incredible boom period. Unprecedented growth and building boom here in Goodyear and the state of Arizona. And then all of a sudden came 2008 and 2009, 10, 11. We've had the most major recession that the country's ever faced. We've had a tremendous decline in revenues. We've had resulting budget reductions, depending on perspective, major budget reductions, and various cost savings that we've been able to implement over the 3 years. This gives you some perspective of the population growth from 2000 to 2006. We went up 150%. went from 19,900 people to 49,813, a major 150% increase. Then the next 4 years, we've gone up 17%. So we're still growing. I mean, most places would die to grow at 17%, but 17% is nothing compared to where we were. This is the assessed valuation, which is something that's very important to the city of Goodyear because our property taxes are based on it, and it shows you that we had basically similar growth in assessed valuation. We went up 877% from 2000 to 2009, and then it's like it fell off the face of the earth. We have had a 33%, a full 3% decrease from 2009 to 2012. So we have gone from a high of $1 billion plus down to a $673 million assessed value. This is the budgets that we've worked on. $130 million in fiscal year 1 and 2, going up to a high of $497 million in the budget of fiscal year 7 and 8. And then since then, it's gone down. The recommended budget this evening is as I mentioned, $213 million. And we believe that that's a very sound budget, and we're excited to be able to recommend it to you this evening. The total budget is $497 million in fiscal year 7 and 8. Then it's gone down $405, $375, $255, and $213. Hopefully this is the last year that it's going down, but right now we're at the $213 million, and that's a reduction of 57% over the past 5 years, which is a major reduction. And as you know from earlier work sessions, that's been we have a smaller government by the tune of 81 employees approximately that we have either laid off or eliminated the positions of when they were vacant. And but we're still, we did not affect any service levels during this entire time, other than, you'll recall, our famous trash collection, bulk waste collection, and some of the difficulties we had in making that transition. Some of the successful budget strategies that we've implemented over the past few years, reducing expenditures, holding the line on recurring expenses, and absorbing operational increased costs where possible, reorganizing and consolidating departments, freezing and eliminating positions, managing to available revenues, increased sales tax rate, which was a major decision on the part of the City Council, and that decision also included a mandatory review in fiscal year 13 of that sales tax rate, and so we are preparing as we get through this budget for future implementation of rate reduction in effect, restructuring debt, conservative budgeting, deferral of maintenance, and deferral of capital projects. The staffing history that I referred to, we had 580 employees in fiscal year 8 and 9 with 6 unfunded positions. We went up to 592 positions in fiscal year 9 and 10. That was primarily because of the ballpark. We added the ballpark. And now we're down to 505 funded positions. And so that's been a major decrease in the staffing level. And it has been some real challenges in order to provide the services with those staff levels. And as I will talk about in a moment, the staff has also been stretched because there have been no increases in compensation for the past 4 years. And, you know, that's been a significant difficulty on the staff. But everybody has pulled together, and it's truly a team working effort to produce the services that the citizens expect, and it's a team producing effort to give the services that the citizens expect. So let me talk about employee compensation and benefits. The council will have a full opportunity to discuss this at the end. And just for Councilman Member Loretano's information, the mayor asked if I could finish this presentation and then ask any questions.
Oh,
So,
no problem. Sorry, I got stuck on I-10.
well, we're paving right now, so.
I noticed.
But it is smooth and beautiful when it's.
I sat on it for a while, so it was very smooth as I sat there.
Sorry about that.
I figured that's
First, let me review the benefits lost or suspended during this past couple of fiscal years. Starting in fiscal year 8 and 9, and quite frankly, this council was very farsighted in doing these reductions early because we have been able to get through this recession with as minimal an impact to the citizens as possible. And that is the primary reason that we're all here, and it's the primary purpose of the city government is to provide those services to the citizens. So we suspended merit increases in fiscal year 8 and 9. And that estimated cost per fiscal year is $1.38 million. And that affected all employees, so 500 and some employees. Fiscal year 9 and 10, we suspended market adjustments, and that cost approximately $1.4 million per year. And again, that affected all employees. Fiscal year 9 and 10, we also suspended the tuition reimbursement program, and that saved us about $140,000, and that affected 60 employees. That same year, we reduced the uniform allowance on the fire department's side. They came forward and offered that to us, and we accepted that, and that saved $92,092, and that affected 91 employees. In that same fiscal year, we eliminated time and a half for working on a holiday, and that saved us approximately $112,750, and that affected 169 employees. And then the following fiscal year, the year we're in right now, 10 and 11, we suspended longevity pay, and that saved between $104,000 to $148,000, depending on which fiscal year. And that affected from 145 to 310 employees. Then fiscal year 10 and 11 suspended the retirement health savings plan, which saved $138,000 to $190,000 and affected 135 employees. And then in fiscal year 10 and 11, we suspended the criteria-based promotions, and that saved us about $67,000, and that affected 14 employees. And then the final thing in this fiscal year, we suspended the vacation cash-in, and that saved $98,000, and that affected approximately 73 employees. Other financial impacts to the employees have been significant, however. During the same time period, we have increases in the cost of living of approximately 6.3%. We have increases in the ASRS contribution rate, the Arizona State Retirement System, for non-sworn personnel, 1.95%. We have increases in the public safety personnel retirement system for sworn personnel of 2%. And we have increases in medical premiums that the city is passing on to the employees of 73%, and increases in out-of-pocket medical expenses, which range from 25% to 500%. And we had a detailed explanation 2 weeks ago by Dean, our risk manager, Kogenhauer, and that was a great presentation about the health benefits and where we're headed with those. Just as a reminder, the increase in out-of-pocket medical expenses, we've had primary doctor copays go up 133% from $15 to $35. Specialist doctor copays increased 120% from $25 to $55. The emergency room copays increased 33% from $75 to $100. Inpatient copays increased 100% from $250 to $500. Outpatient copays increased from being free to $500. And pharmaceutical copays increased on average 25% from 10, 20, 40, so depending which prescription you were purchasing, to $10, $30, and $50. So these were substantial increases that the employees faced, and I don't want to say willingly, but they basically knew that we were all in this together, and so as I mentioned earlier, they're all pulling together. What this has done to adjusted gross pay for the employees, this is non-sworn personnel. Basically, if you look at the bottom, it says 0%, 73%, 21%. This is the average, the decrease, the difference from fiscal year 9 that an employee takes home. So you, again, you look at the numbers above that, the $0, and then in red, you have a $1,448 decrease, an $1,185 decrease, and then a $2,633 decrease. That's the amount that take-home pay has decreased, and the purchasing power has decreased of city employees for non-sworn positions. And on top of that, you add the 6.3% for the cost of living change, and employees have contributed significantly to the savings that the city has experienced during this downturn. On the sworn level, you'll see the same numbers, and it just happens they both are about 5% without the cost of living. And then Senate Bill 1069, as you know, has passed the legislature, and the governor signed it, and this is the pension bill, and that is pension increases 2% for the public safety personnel from 7.65 to 9.65%, and that's effective July 1st. So with these increases alone, the costs have gone, or the take-home pay has gone down 5%, and then again, as I mentioned, you have the cost of living added in there. The compensation plan adjustment for the fire department sworn fire salary survey results. We went through this last week. This slide is from the April 3 weeks ago. This is from the April 25th council work session. And it shows Goodyear's sworn fire structures compared to the 10 survey cities' structures, as well as Goodyear's midpoint compared to the market average salaries. And as has been presented by our human resources manager, making adjustments to the compensation plan is a multi-step process. With police and fire structures, we look at the minimums of the range to ensure hiring competitiveness, and the maximums of the range to allow for longevity. As you can see here, the entry point for sworn fire personnel is below 100% of market for the following positions: the fire engineer, fire captains, and the fire deputy chiefs. This is just dealing with the structures. Here's the fire department recommendation. We looked at this carefully from all standpoints, and we're recommending that the deputy chiefs be moved one step, and that'll cost $69,500. And we phase in the step adjustments for the engineers and captains over a 3-year period at 2.5% per year. And what that does is it fixes the structures and adjusts employees within the same range equally. It reduces the compression by moving all employees in the affected ranges by like amounts. It provides a benefit to 35 employees, and it does not provide an increase to all sworn firefighter and battalion chiefs would not receive an increase. And it spread costs over a period of time so that it enables the city to factor this in and to sustain the budget as we move forward. On the police department, this shows you the same information for the positions of the police department. This slide also was presented to you on April 25th. And as you can see, the entries for all sworn police officers are all below market average. In this particular case, we're recommending phase-in step adjustments for sergeants, lieutenants, and commanders over, again, a 3-year period, 2.5% a year, and that will cost the city $166,200 in the first year, and then move police officers and detectives one step. What this will accomplish is reducing the compression. Again, we're dealing just with the structure, but it will reduce compression. It reaches all sworn police positions, 89 employees. It fixes structures and adjusts employees within the same range equally, and it spreads costs out over time. So again, that it is something that we can sustain no matter what happens to the economy, in our opinion. We had other considerations related to compensation that would affect all employees, so not just police and fire. We reviewed various options based on council feedback at the April 25th discussion. There was discussion about lump sum performance payment. Discussion was around a percentage of salary, such as 1% for successful and 2% for outstanding. And then there was also discussion about a flat amount, like $800 for successful and $1,200 for outstanding. Then there was other compensation discussion based on performance. And we talked about up to 2 additional days off with pay based on performance. 1 day for successful and 2 days for outstanding. And as you'll recall, we reviewed the statistics with you. There are 4 employees who, at the last review, were not rated as, they were rated below, not performing. And assuming that those employees may not even be with us right now, but the bulk of the employees are either successful or outstanding in their performance. One-time performance payment, this is for up to 2% increase based on performance. For all non-exempt employees, this is hourly eligible for overtime. It would cost approximately $112,000. And for 2%, obviously twice that, or $224,000. For the exempt employees, which are the salaried employees, we'd have $109,000 for 1% and $218,000 for 2%. Sworn police would be $65,000 for 1 and $130,000 for 2. Sworn fire, $61,000 for 1 and $122,000 for 2. And the total would therefore be $347,000 approximately for 1%, or approximately $694,000 for 2%. So the fiscal year 12 estimated cost would be about $575,000. That would account for roughly 33% of the employees, assuming that they would be rated successful, and assuming that 66% would be outstanding. That would be $460,000 added to the $115,000. So that would be $575,000. One-time performance payment in the flat amount based on performance. So this would be $800 based on a rating of successful. And that would cost $124,000. And then if it was $1,200 instead based on a rating of outstanding, that'd be $378,000. And so the total estimated cost would be $502,000. A lump sum payout of $1,200 for outstanding and $800 for successful. We're dealing roughly with 490 employees that are on staff right now. 4 employees that does not meet expectations. 16 employees are still on the trial period as of July 1st, so they would not qualify for a lump sum. So there's 470 employees that qualify for a lump sum. And that's basically 315 would be outstanding, and that would cost approximately $378,000. And 155 would be successful, and that would be about $124,000 for the total of $502,000. Fiscal year 12 employee compensation recommendation. The recommendation is one-time compensation based on performance. That's up to 2 additional paid days off based on performance. And there's not really a cost there. There's a loss of productivity, but there's not a cost in direct cost to the budget. Ongoing adjustment to address below market structure in public safety. We're recommending that we do it over a 3-year period. And in the fire, it would be $69,500 cost the first year. And in police, it would be $166,000 cost in the first year. And then the 2 additional holidays that are in lieu of no merit increases, and that will cost approximately $94,500, and that's basically for overtime for police and fire because they work, 24/7. So that is the recommendation for compensation. It's the, as I mentioned, the one-time compensation up to 2 additional paid days off, so it'd be 1 day off additional for successful, 2 days for outstanding, and then the fire would be $69,500, police would be $166,000. Both of them would be the first year of a 3-year program, and then additional holidays, those are at Christmas and New Year's, and that cost that would be borne by the city would be an additional $94,500. All of that is within the present budget proposal that you have before you. The fiscal year 12 budget then is approximately $213 million, and that's a decrease of approximately 15% from the $255 million in the fiscal year 11 budget. General fund operating budget totals about $54 million, and we're very excited and very pleased that is a structurally balanced budget. It includes all ongoing costs supported through ongoing revenues. The total operating budget for all funds is $73 million. The fiscal year 12 capital improvement budget totals $6 million, which is much more restricted than previous years, and it's mainly supported through development fees. And $55 million of the total $213 million is only in the event of an improvement district. And as you all know, and I've talked to several of you, in Arizona, if you don't include something in the budget, you can't go and spend it. So this is just, we have no idea, we don't have no plans for an improvement district, but if something came up and something came forward and some developer wanted to do something, this gives the council the ability to spend up to $55 million through an improvement district or something of the like, and there would be room in the budget for that type of expenditure. The fiscal year budget includes maintains all existing service levels, so there's no negative effect upon any service level. The utility enterprise funds are all self-sufficient. This is something that I'm also very happy and proud of. When I first got here 3 years ago and sitting in at council advance, I was shocked to find out that the utility funds were not self-supporting. And so the council gave me a goal to get this done, and we have done it over a 3-year period, so there's been minimal impact to the ratepayers, our citizens. And this year, the utility enterprise funds are totally self-sufficient for operating and their own debt service. This budget ensures the city's fiscal stability. Our general obligation bonds were recently upgraded from A+ to AA-. That's Standard & Poor's, and from A1 to AA2, which is Moody's. And that's a terrific thing that we've been able to accomplish during this recession, that we were able to get upgrades. This budget also includes a reduction in the food for consumption tax rate of 0.25%. And that's a reduction of, I believe it's $375,000. We'll get to that in a moment. It includes an equipment reserve funding for technology and vehicle replacement. From a quality of life standpoint, there's Parks and Recreation. It maintains all service levels. And from an historic Goodyear standpoint, we've been able to make several improvements over recent years. We have $257,000 for the Palmatier Park improvements that are being done with CDBG monies. The community garden project, which the neighborhood has worked so closely with the city on. Public art projects and signs that are currently being implemented. And the Loma Linda Park renovation project, which I'll talk about more in a moment. And then priority projects, we have streets, Public Works corporate yard, the Loma Linda Park improvement design, and traffic signals. This is the fiscal year 11 and 12 draft budget in millions of dollars. So operating, you go across the top, fiscal year 8, $103 million. 9, 93 million, 10, 73 million, 11, 71 million. This is the first time we've been able to turn back up. Fiscal year 12 is 73 million. The CIP, the debt, the grants, and the contingency. On the grants, I would just note that the $10 million, for example, that we have in the proposed fiscal year 12 budget, that's also a placeholder, much like the $55 million. If we get a grant, we have several that we're applying for right now, but if we get a grant, then we have the ability to spend it. If we didn't budget that, then we'd have no ability to spend it. And so the total budget is $213 million as compared to the $497 in fiscal year 08, the $405 in 09, the $375 in 10, the $255 in 11, and the fiscal year 12, the $213. Most of that change, of course, is because of the capital budget. As I mentioned, the operating budget already is the first year that it's going back up. This shows you in a pie graph form where the money comes from. We have total sources supporting the fiscal year 12 operating budget, not operating, the fiscal year 12 budget is $213 million. Of this, the largest source, or 35%, or nearly $75 million, comes from the general government taxes and charges for services. 20% is from fund balance, which represents not only the prior year carryover and contingency requirements, and then approximately $28 million is from the general fund and the utility user fees, such as charges for sanitation, water, and wastewater. That represents $26 million, or 12% of the total budget. Grants are at 5%, impact fees represent 2%, and possible developer-funded infrastructure, this is the $55 million that I've already talked about. That's in effect a placeholder, but that's in there also. Where the money goes, total expenditures are $213 million. Capital improvements and one-time funding represent the largest expenditures at 47%. And this is comprised of the new CIP, or Capital Improvements Plan, that's $6 million. Carryover CIP, which is approximately $30 million. Grants and one-time monies of $10 million, which, as I mentioned, are basically placeholders. And the proposed improvement district of $55 million, as I mentioned, also a placeholder. Next, operations for all funds total $73 million, or 34% of the budget. Debt service is about $23 million. This includes all general obligation bonds, PIC bonds, water and sewer revenue bonds, the WIFA loan that we have, and bond payments for the McDowell Road Improvement District, which are funded through the taxpayer assessments to Westcorp, basically. Also included is the contingency or rainy day fund, which this is presently in the budget for $16.3 million, which is, per council policy right now, 4 months of operating expenditures. And as I'll talk about in a moment, we have not touched that yet. We're proposing that the council hold off on that until the council advance June 11th. And in effect, our recommendation is that you can lower that by $2 million, so you'll have $2 million that you can possibly use for other projects that may come up in a priority fashion. This slide shows the operating budget for all funds, and it totals the $73 million. The majority of the budget is for the personnel-related expenses, or 63%, which is $46 million of that total, and that includes all salaries, health care, retirement, etc. Next is contractual services at 33%, or $24 million, and the remaining 4%, or $3 million, is for commodities and supplies. This is a breakdown by operating expenditures by department, and as you can see, you go from the largest department, which is Public Works, representing approximately 27% of the total operating budget, to Fire and Police, which combined represent about 25% of the budget. So Public Works now, with the various changes and consolidations we've made, is the largest department that the city has, and that covers not only public works, streets, sanitation, water, sewer, fleet, facilities, things like that. So that department is, as I mentioned, 27% of the budget. The stadium budget is at $3.7 million and is subsidized by the general fund at $2.1 million. The general fund operating budget overview, this shows you that the basic ongoing sources is 56.8% or 56.8 million in 10-11. The estimate is 57.7 million, and the proposed budget is $62.2 million. Ongoing uses is $52.3 million, and the estimate for fiscal year 10-11 is $51.5 million, and then proposed for fiscal year 11 and 12 is $54.4 million. And transfers out are $8.6 million, both the budget and the estimate in 10-11, and then it's reduced to $7.7 million. And that $900,000 reduction, Gary, I checked on that, and that was for the streets. That we've moved it out of the ongoing operating revenues into a one-time payment. So that was the reduction of that. The total structural deficit and or surplus, you'll see, was $4.2 million in fiscal year 10-11 budget. It was reduced to $2.4 million by the conclusion. We're estimating that it will be reduced to $2.4 million by the end of this fiscal year. And next year we'll produce a surplus of $100,000. And that is everything being included in the operating, in the budget, and all of the debt service is included. So we're really excited and proud of that accomplishment. Revenues are going up at approximately 7% in this next year's budget. And you'll see that the sales tax collections are estimated to increase at approximately 2%. And the state shared revenues, which was very fortunate that we had the census this past year, you'll see are going from $9.56 million to $12.6 million. And that's because of the change in the population for the city of Goodyear. We came out, quote, a winner, so to speak. Other cities in the valley, because of the percentage of population, came out the losers. The city of Phoenix especially lost state shared revenues. But the projections that the League of Arizona Cities have provided to us are $12,649,218. Development related is $3.408 million. Primary property tax, $6.3 million. And then other is $6.8 million for total general fund operating revenues of $58.9 million. And then the construction sales tax at the bottom after that is the $3 million we're recommending. The budget this past year was $3 million. As of right now, it looks like we're going to come in basically on budget, $3,063,000. And as I mentioned, we are scheduled to review, the council's scheduled to review the 0.05% general sales tax increase in fiscal year 12 and note any adjustments for fiscal year 13. This shows you the total sales tax. You know, it still continues to come in relatively strong. As you'll see, the totals have, for last month that we just received for April, and Gary, I checked on this and I gave you some misinformation today. April is not for March. April is for the month earlier. So it's always a month behind. So April, the collections in April were for February, and so this is not yet spring training. So the numbers that are coming this next month will be the impact of spring training. And so if you look at NASCAR also, that will be a month later than what you and I were talking about also. And as I mentioned, the increase that's included in the projection is for a 2% increase. Retail sales taxes, this shows, if you look at the, I know this is a confusing with a lot of colored lines, but if you look at April, you'll see the green line on the right-hand side. It shows a tremendous increase this past year in the retail sales tax. That's been going up pretty healthily every month, obviously because of the 0.5% increase, but also without the 0.5% increase, it showed an increase in retail sales tax also. Restaurant and bar sales taxes, if you look at the trends are up. The receipts for March were basically down a little bit, but it was just $1,000, I believe. And so as you look at this over the past 12 months, however, it's been an extremely positive growth for the city as we've continued forward. Construction sales tax, this is kind of a depressing thing to look at, but it is stabilizing, and the green is the current collection. And as I mentioned, we're collecting roughly at the $3 million level, and we believe that we will again incorporate a $3 million budget figure for this current year. We did not increase it, and we feel relatively confident that that will be achievable. We last month issued 57 building permits for new single-family homes, and that's compared to 48 last year. So at least we had 9 additional homes over and above the 48 last year. The tax levy for fiscal year 11 and 12, primary property tax in fiscal year 11 was $6 million, and in fiscal year 12 will be $6.3 million. The secondary property tax is $5.6 million in this current fiscal year, and next year will generate only $4.4 million. The total property taxes are $11.6 million in fiscal year 11 and $10.7 million in fiscal year 12. The water and sewer debt was pulled out from the secondary property tax this year. That is now totally paid for by the water and sewer rates, and so that's why the reduction in the secondary property tax was able to be achieved. The property tax rate, fiscal year 9 and 10, you'll see the $1.60, and then this last year, the current year that we're in, you'll recall the discussions and the council approved $1.42. We were able to use some monies that were on hand, and we cautioned at that time that it would have to go back up to $1.60 this next fiscal year, and this shows you that the primary tax will be at 0.94 cents, 94.46 cents, and the secondary property tax will be at 65.54 cents, and that total tax rate will be at $1.60, which is a self-imposed limit that the council has set. We were able to absorb this drop, the drop that I've already referred to in the assessed valuation, and the lesser rate due to the utility funds being able to fully fund their debt service. So that was critical to the city in accomplishing that. General fund operating expenditures. Basically, there's a 5% increase in the base budget. It remains consistent with previous year's forecasts, including all added ongoing costs. The increase is largely, and I'll get to this in the next page, is largely from ongoing operating costs in the general fund. But we're going from a budget of $52.38 million, estimates $51.589 million, to a projected budget of $54.4 million, and that's a 5% increase. These are the operating costs that are fully funded in the budget, but that we have incorporated. One is the health insurance. In the general fund portion is $742,000, or $619,000 for the operational costs. Fire services in the Sonoran Valley, as you know, we had been working with the Action community down in Mobile. That has not worked out. They want way too much money, and so this $236,000, coupled with roughly the $73,000 I believe that we have in there right now, will pay for the operations of a two-man unit that we will have to put down in Mobile every day and with a truck, and that will be something that the community really wants because, as you know from the last visit down there, the community really misses our fire department, and so they're looking forward to the re-arrival of our two-man fire crew. They will not be able to fight fires. We will still be dependent upon the city of Mobile, but the statistics, we are averaging one call a month, and it's basically for emergency medical care from an accident or something.
You want more, you want Maricopa.
I'm sorry, yes. Thank you. Maricopa, yes. Then we have the RWC radio increased costs, which will be $122,000 operating costs. And that's for the region. RWC is Regional Wireless Cooperative. And then an increase in fleet service rates of $220,000 and a public safety compensation plan adjustment that I talked about, which is the first year of that plan, is the $235,000. That's a total budget additions of $1.4 million, which is totally incorporated into the budget proposal that's before you this evening. Okay, we're basically finished with the general fund discussions, and now we'll focus on the one-time discussions. Fiscal year 12 budget one-time uses, and these again are all funded in the budget. Economic development projects, permits and infrastructure, $250,000. This is for unknown things that we will be recruiting businesses to the city of Goodyear that we have available to us to work with. Economic development job credits and training, $500,000. Those are for companies that we've been recruiting that we already have commitments to. Risk management claims, a reserve of $250,000. Risk management consultant, about $30,000. Part-time labor, that's primarily in the attorney's office. That'll be $55,000. City council initiatives, this is a number that we have in here. It's not designated for anything. It's for things that the council may wish to undertake, that we have some monies set aside that we can be responsive to those requests. Street maintenance is in for $1.2 million, and fleet reserve is in at $1.3 million. And on these two numbers, the $1.2 million street maintenance, we have carryover of $400,000, so it's 1.6 in the total expenditures for the proposed budget. And under the fleet reserve, the 1.3, we're proposed to spend approximately 1.8, and that's because we have 500,000 carryover from the funding that you did last year. We spent roughly $1 million, and we have roughly 500,000 of carryover. And then information technology reserves and replacement, $300,000. That's for new computers and things like that. And then the Centennial Parade we have identified as a separate project in there of $25,000. As I mentioned this on the street funding, the fiscal year 11 we spent $800,000, and then in 12 we're recommending to go up to $1.6 million. And this is for basically arterial roadway sections, collector roadway sections, bridge repairs, streets and traffic. The unfunded need for fiscal year 12 is projected at roughly $900,000, and that's based on our previous work session where we identified that it would cost approximately $2.5 million per year in order to maintain our PCI, or pavement construction index, at a level of 75, or 70, excuse me. And the overall average of the PCI is projected to drop down to a 70 right now. But we believe that the $1.6 million that we're recommending is adequate coverage for this year's budget. We're pleased that we're able to increase this year's budget in totally funding it from the current operating budget revenues. And the funding, as it's restored, as budgets improve, we're going to have to address the $2.5 million. And so that is our goal and our target that we're shooting for right now. On the fleet maintenance, the $1.5 million we spent last year, as you recall, was budgeted. And as I mentioned, we've spent approximately $1 million of that. And as we told you, we'd have $500,000 to carry forward, and that's what we have right now. And so the fiscal year 12 funding is the $1.8 million that we're proposing. Again, that will address 17 units within our Goodyear Police Department, 3 units within our fire department, 3 units within our general government. And that also includes funding for future reserves so that we will be able to move forward. Again, we will have time to talk about all of this as we conclude this presentation. The capital improvement plan for fiscal year 2011, shows the type, water, wastewater, water reclamation, so forth, on the left column, and the year fiscal year 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, and then the total. The total over that time period is $36,299,000, and under fiscal year 12, which is the budget that we're proposing for you this year, it totals $6,091,000. That's made up of the water, $821,000, water reclamation, $66,000, technology, nothing, streets, $3.8 million, facilities, $1.2 million, art, nothing, parks, $119,000 for a total of $6,091,000. Total funding for fiscal year 12 CIP budget is $6 million, with streets representing the largest share of this at $3.8 million. And I'll talk about the specific projects that are incorporated in the streets budget. $2 million of this $3.8 million is the El Cedro payment for the right-of-way that we're purchasing. So that's why the number seems a little inflated. We have 2 more payments on that particular agreement.
Is it this and one more?
Yes, this and one more.
Okay.
The total CIP budget by funding source is the largest revenue comes from, again, the development impact fees. And that's probably one of the biggest questions, and we're still analyzing that because we don't know for sure what the new legislation does. It's confusing legislation. And so we're analyzing that. We're working with the League of Arizona Cities. And as we get those final numbers, we will present them to you. We don't know for sure what we will be able to spend those monies for, and we aren't sure what we will be able to continue to charge. For example, we have an agreement with Newland up in Estrella Mountain Ranch for a community park, and we're buying the community park, and we're making annual payments. Well, that's a contractual relationship, and we're doing it out of our general fund. It could have been done as a bond issue. If it was as a bond issue, it's clearly something that you could continue to charge impact fees for because you have bonds that you must pay for. Since it's a contractual obligation, we're not sure, so we're still looking at that. But as we get those finalized, we will share with you what those conclusions are. The total impact fee revenues are estimated at $2.8 million, and they go to support water, reclaimed water, public works, parks, and street projects. And as I mentioned, the El Cedro Fund is the 303 right-of-way payment, and that's $2 million in the general fund. This is the non-utility or street projects for the CIP. We have traffic signal system, which includes ITS conduit, fiber, and conduit. We have Pebble Creek, Van Buren to Indian School of $700,000. Bullard Avenue, which is I-10 to Estrella, $306,000. Traffic control system conduit, $274,000. I-10 and the 303, which is landscaping, sleeves, future reclaimed water, $145,000. Then street improvements, we have drainage project in historic Goodyear, and that's CDBG monies, and that's $200,000. Traffic signals, $208,335. And then the SR 303 right-of-way, which is the $2 million payment for a total of $3.8 million. Then we have also the new Public Works corporate yard, Phase 2, wash rack, the fuel site, and the storage, and that's $1.2 million, and that's basically all impact fees. And then park projects, we have the Loma Linda Park design funded this year, because of the partnership we have with the church in the neighborhood, which is just fantastic. And so the park will be designed. We're recommending that it be designed this year, and then we can address the construction of it next year. We have a timetable coming up here in a moment. And then the park projects total $119,000, and that's non-utility projects of $5.2 million. Then we have the water projects, $601,657. Central Arizona project, which is the municipal and the industrial charges, and that's 3,531 acre feet. And we have to make these payments in order to retain the rights to those. So that's $220,000. And then the water reclamation, we have reclaimed system expansion of $66,307. So utility projects total $887,000. This shows you the total revenue for the water fund being at $10 million, and this is primarily from user fees and charges for service for utility customers. Water fund expenditures for fiscal year 12 total $10 million and include salaries, contractual services, with the largest expenses for electrical, chemicals, and system maintenance and commodities. Debt service is included. This is the first time that we've been able to do this at $5 million, and the utility funds are totally self-supporting for fiscal year 12, the water fund. And the wastewater fund, which is the next item, is also totally self-supporting. And total revenue for the wastewater fund is $9 million and is mainly from customer user fees. Expenditures total $8 million and again include all salaries and everything. And any surplus of revenues over expenditures will remain in fund balance to help support future system improvements. The sanitation fund has revenues of $6.3 million and expenses of $5.7 million for fiscal year 12. This includes indirect cost reimbursements to the general fund and all other costs that the utility will incur during the year. Highway User Fund, the HERF fund, which is the streets fund, we got a big boost in that fund from the census again because of the census figures coming in so strong. We'll be receiving an additional $880,000. However, that's offset by the amount the legislature took from us. And that reduction in fiscal year 12 for the Department of Public Safety and ADOT is $589,000. So we have a net gain of roughly $200,000 additional monies. And then fiscal year 11, the legislature stepped in and took $92,000, and that was for the Department of Public Safety. And this was just one of the sweeps that they made without consultation with any of the cities or anybody. The Stadium Fund, we have revenue sources from the stadium coming from spring training sales of about $1.2 million and non-spring training events of about $400,000. Additionally, $2.1 million is from the general fund. It's transferred in for operations, and $5.3 million is transferred to cover the debt on the PIC bonds. Expenditures for the operations total $3.4 million and another $5 million for debt. This also includes annual reserve payments, as you recall, of $250,000 that the city is obligated to make into the future stadium capital repairs account. Finally, as a follow-up to items that were raised at the May 9th work session, both the Loma Linda Park improvements and the building occupancy inspection fee. On Loma Linda Park improvement project, the community-driven master plan process is funded in total by St. John Vianney, and that's $20,000 in the spring of 2010. The project was presented to the council in June of 2010 and approved by the council in August of 2010. Highlights of the plan include swimming pool improvements including removal of the wading pool and installation of a splash pad, renovation or reconstruction of expanded community center, a new playground, improved open space athletic fields, increased number of ramadas, new sand volleyball court, new tennis basketball court, irrigation system, landscape improvements, including tree replacement, native plants, decomposed granite, and parking improvements, including increase in number of spaces and turnaround area into the park. The plan complements St. John Vianney's proposed site plan, so we're working very well with the church in making sure that both site plans are complementary to each other. The projected timeline that we are showing is that May to July of this year, we will work with the engineering department to develop the RFP for design services. July, we will issue an RFP for design services. In July to September, we'll construction fundraising plan implementation. And September of 2011, Council would approve the design services contract. October to March would be the design and construction documents being developed. And then bid construction project, if funding is available, would go out in April of 2012. And late summer of 2012 would be the groundbreaking, and the spring of 2013 would be the project completion. So that's the ideal timetable that we're working with and trying to implement this project. The funding, the total project is estimated to cost $2.7 million. The design's estimated to cost the $200,000, and we have that included in this year's budget. We were able to move it up, although this project is not in the CIP, simply because the church and the neighborhood's willingness to work with the city, and so we were able to partner with them in coming up with these funds. The construction is therefore estimated to cost $2.5 million. The project is to be funded using both public and private funds. The public funds is a combination of impact fees, general fund monies, and grants. This is a big caveat. The recent change in state law may impact our ability to use impact fees. We're still working through that. The design cost, as I mentioned, is included in the fiscal year 12 budget. Private funds, St. John Vianney has pledged up to an additional $30,000 towards design and construction of the project, so their total contribution will be $50,000, which is just fantastic. Source of the funding, therefore, is impact fees, if we can do that, and grants. There are no large grants available that we've been able to identify yet, but we're going after small grants in increments. For example, basketball hoops from the Phoenix Suns. So we're doing all of things like that to try to put the funding together. And as I mentioned, St. John Vianney, very much to their credit, has committed to contribute $50,000. The other item that you wanted us to follow up on was the business occupancy inspection user fee. This is a user fee that was recommended in the user fee study in 2009. To calculate, what it did was calculate the cost of the service and recommended the established fee that would give us cost recovery for this particular service. More specifically, all fire department fees were reviewed, and the recommendation to council was to charge for business occupancy inspections. The council adopted the user fee study approximately a year ago in May of 2010. The business occupancy inspections, current fee is $0 for first and second inspections and $90 for third and additional inspections. The recommended fee is a three-tier fee based upon low, medium, and high risk, occupancy risk. Provided by the City Council, approved by the City Council in May 2010. Low risk is $25 per year with an annual self-inspection report and 2-year inspection rotation requirement. Medium risk is $50 per year with an annual inspection requirement, and high risk is $100 per year with an annual and semi-annual inspection requirement. The projected revenue from this fee is roughly $64,000. And this is a cost recovery fee. This service costs approximately $64,000, and it's currently just being subsidized by the general taxpayer. The city did send out letters, as you all know, informing the business community that this fee would be implemented as of July 1st, and that's where it stands right now as of the moment. The user fee schedule, there are 1,200 current occupied commercial industrial businesses in our community. 42% of the occupancies are what are considered low risk. 28% are vacant suites and buildings. 26% are high risk, and the high risk occupancies requires 6 to 8 hours to for a safety inspection, and require an additional inspection for the annual hazardous material storage and the use permit. A low risk inspection can take around 20 to 30 minutes. We did a comparison with some of the other communities. Mesa has a fee ranging from $15 for low risk to $250. Peoria's fee ranges from $50 for a low risk to $1,950 for a high risk. Inspections are done annually. Phoenix's range from $50 for low risk to $1,650 for high risk. Inspections are done annually and every 2 years. Chandler's fees range from $40 to $500, and inspections are annually and 2 years. And several jurisdictions are considering cost recovery based upon occupancy inspections. Low-risk occupancies, the types of occupancies that are covered here are convenience stores, self-service storage units, banks, car washes without on-site underground or above-ground flammable or combustible tanks, professional offices, and barber and beauty shops. Medium-risk occupancies are such things as hotels, apartments, some storage facilities, assemblies not classified as high risk, fast food restaurants, and then some smaller restaurants with occupancy loads under 100 people. And then high-risk occupancies are such things as large assembly areas, woodworking shops, spray finishing, painting, semiconductor manufacturing, hospitals, basically places that have chemical-type storage. Large mercantile or businesses, facilities with high piled storage, high-rise structures, car washes with on-site underground or above-ground flammable. The fiscal year 12 budget, the summary and policy on this. The summary, we have tried to incorporate here the things that are included in the fiscal year 12 budget and the things that are not included in the fiscal year budget. The fire department compensation plan adjustment, we're recommending $69,500. It is incorporated into the budget. Police department compensation is incorporated into the budget for the first year of the 3-year program, $166,000. The option of a 2% merit increase, up to a 2% merit increase based on performance, that would cost $694,000. That is not included in the budget. Up to $1,200 compensation based on performance would cost $502,000. That is not included in the budget. 2 additional holidays in lieu of a merit increase, $94,500 is included in the budget. And then up to 2 additional paid days off based on performance. That is not really a additional cost from a budgetary standpoint, but it is a productivity impact, obviously. But we have departments that manage through the schedules, and even in the police and fire department that is possible, so there is not an actual increase to the budget. Fully funded street maintenance plan, we have included in the budget the $1.6 million, and not included in the budget is the $900,000 that would bring that to $2.5 million. The economic development corridor design, this is the Bullard Avenue design, that's $615,000, is not included in the budget. The right-of-way maintenance, which is the phase 1 of the right-of-way maintenance, that's a $4.3 million project. That's $785,000 for the phase 1. That is not included in the budget. Loma Linda Park improvements, the design and construction, we have incorporated the $200,000 for design in the budget. and the construction is not included in the CIP yet. The business occupancy inspection fee, $64,000, is included in the budget, and the rainy day fund budgeted at 4 months of operating is, I mean, it's not in the budget, it's sitting there for the council to do with what they decide. With that, I just point out that this is the budget calendar again, the 5/16 today, the workshop. Before we get into the discussion, just as a general reminder, we need council to reach some basic conclusions this evening so that the budget can be prepared and presented to the council for final adoption. The tentative budget adoption is next Monday, May 23rd, and this sets, as I mentioned earlier, the maximum amount that can be spent. You can spend less than that, certainly, but in order to spend the monies, you have to include it in the budget. The final budget adoption and public hearing on the property tax levy is scheduled for June 27th, and the property tax adoption, which is the final step of the fiscal year 12 budget, is scheduled for June 11th. With that, I'd be happy to discuss anything you want.
Okay.
Pretty good.
Who would like to start? Councilman Souza?
Good. Mr. City Manager,
Be sure you're talking really into that so they can.
I appreciate the efforts that your staff and yourself have put into this proposed budget. However, in the budget, I don't see an across the board raise for all employees. We know, sitting on this council, that it's been going on 4 years now that these folks have not had any type of increased compensation. I made a recommendation the last meeting we had that maybe we can go into the rainy day fund. You talked about $2 million in the council retreat. We'll talk about that. Why don't we talk about it now? Why don't we take that $2 million, okay, and spread that around the salary for all employees? I know, probability it can't be done legally, but can we take $2 million and spread it on the general fund and take the general fund money into the raises from the rainy day fund? I think we've got to consider that these folks are faced with the same problems that all 7 of us here in the council are faced with, and that's the cost of living. Many of us here are on fixed incomes, and certainly at this stage of the game, they are also, because of the freezes that we put upon them. Up to this point, it's been all give on their part, and we take, and we haven't given anything back to them. I think it's about time for the council to realize that we've got to do something for the staff in total. I wish you'd take that in consideration, see what we can with the legal department about using the funds from the rainy day fund to afford this type of increase for the entire staff that we have in the city. This staff has made this city what it is today. There's not one person in this council that can deny that. And I think we owe it to them. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Just go to row?
Well, whatever, you can,
I just have several questions, so.
all right. Well,
Okay.
Councilwoman Loretano.
Okay. I was very good. I was quiet and didn't say anything till you got to me. I have a couple questions. First of all, with the 0.5, that is my biggest concern. In principle, I agree with everything you're saying. My concern is
The 0.5%
yes,
general
sales
system.
increase. That is my biggest concern. I understand cost of living has gone up for all of our citizens, and I understand that our employees have given a lot, and they are stellar employees, and they're wonderful employees. I personally have a problem giving any sort of increases because we told everyone it's an emergency. So I have a couple questions about that 0.5. If we didn't have that 0.5, would we have a structural deficit today or not?
Absolutely. It'd be a roughly $4.9 million.
That's what I was just looking at about. It's running when I looked at your schedule.
Yeah, the numbers
so.
I'm using in my head are $5 million from the 0.5%, and we have a $100,000 quote surplus, and so that's why I said 4.9 million.
So if we didn't have that, we'd be kind of in the same position we were last year with it. So
Yes.
we're still not really running in the black without that. Is that a fair statement?
That is a fair statement.
Okay, and then I have another question. With regard to and I kind of don't want to jump too much all over the board, but when we're talking again with the sales tax, when we get rid of it in 2013, do we expect a structural deficit when that goes away or not? I mean, what are your projections?
I can't answer that right now because I have not done those projections. I would dare say that if we were to do those projections right now, that definitely there'd be a structural deficit. That's my best guess. I believe that what the council directed us to do is begin to look at that in 2013 as to whether or not we can reduce that. So what I'm assuming that we will do is take a look. Let's say we are able to reduce it by half of it or something. I mean, that's what we're taking a look at. I doubt that we will be back to you recommending that we do away with the 0.5% increase in 1 year. The mall will be coming in, and that's quite frankly a thing that we are really counting on because that will generate the excess monies or excess that will make us able to reduce that 0.5%.
Could I make a suggestion here? If the rest of you have a question concerning the same question she asked, how about if we chime in? Do you mind doing
that's
that?
fine.
So is there anybody on her first two questions that she has want to add to that?
I had a question for council members.
All right, let's take care of this one then, and we'll go back to that. Thank you.
Regarding your compensation for
You have to speak in there. Pull it up to you because it's just not coming through. Thank you.
regarding your regarding your compensation for employees, is this in addition to the adjustments that are being recommended for police and fire?
No,
This is in lieu of.
in lieu of.
Thank you.
All right. The next question.
First, and just to follow up on Councilmember Loretano, first of all, to get back to the employees, I agree. I would match ours up with anybody in the valley as far as employees are concerned. The biggest concern is the structural deficit, number one, and I think there are some options on the table where we can do something without creating an additional burden on the finances to do that. But to get to the 0.5, I also agree at some point we got to get that down. But in reality,
You're
I would-
addressing Loretano,
yeah,
right?
in Loretano, I would like to see us do it in a financially responsible manner. And what I mean by that is, if next year we don't have 0.5, right now if we get a structural deficit gone, and to me that's almost like ground zero. We're back at square one again. Next year you're looking at $5 million. Honestly, I don't think we'll have an additional $5 million in revenue next year as cost savings. I think to do it, we're going to have to look at a plan, and maybe this is what we kind of discuss when we get into our advance on a plan. We're going to have to slowly bring this down in a responsible manner that we don't have a negative impact on our services that we do out there and do it responsibly. I agree with the city manager. I think the mall is going to be a big impact on this, but $5 million, I'll be honest with you, I don't see it next year. I don't see a $5 million savings next year or a $5 million revenue. I could be wrong. Who knows? We could get a massive turnaround. I mean, I have no crystal ball no more than anybody else. But I think we need to come up with a plan, and we need to make sure it's fiscally responsible so we don't get in a place where, oops, now we got to put money back on the table because we did it too much. So that's my only comment when it comes to
Okay,
that.
Sherry, you're still on, so do you want to, I'm sorry, did you have something?
Yeah, to answer Joe. You're saying that my proposal would add to the deficit, are you not?
No, I'm not saying it would add to the deficit, but the additional $2 million that we would add to out of the general fund, that's a one-shot deal. What would we, I mean, you still got a bigger problem next year, whether you create it as a bonus or a one-time type of issue. And to tell you the truth, the $16.3 million that you have set up in the rainy day fund, you don't have to answer that question now. We've got an advance coming to figure out
But
what
that's
that
going to be after the budget.
it can still be implemented. It can still be implemented.
Excuse me, Madam Mayor, members of the council, the full $16.3 million is budgeted.
It's budgeted.
So you can use it.
We can use it in.
That's what he's saying, so.
We have restrictions on how we can use it. That's the reason I thought we couldn't use it for salaries. The rainy day fund.
You can, it's not advisable because as Councilmember Pizzillo was talking, it's one-time monies, but you can use it for anything that you want.
Well, a lot of people.
Roy, did you have a comment?
No, Councilmember Souza, it's just a budgeted line item. I mean, there's a small restriction in the charter on your cash basis fund, but that's, I think, only accounts to 3 or 4 million, which is the restriction. Anything above that is a council policy decision on setting up aside a certain amount of money per year for the contingency. So
This is one-time money.
yeah, it's budgeted. You can use it, with the restriction, absent the restriction in the charter, there's, a significant amount there you could use for those purposes.
Okay. Sherry, why don't you go ahead now? What was your?
I'm sorry, I have a
You're
list
still
here.
on. No, I'm keeping track here. Go ahead.
Oh, okay, so then my next question, these all kind of tie together when we're talking about that. What is the cost for our payroll for 2 days? What is our payroll cost for 2 days?
For 2 days.
Yeah, because there's,
126,000 per day,
okay, so for 2 days, it's
252.
252,000. Okay. My concern obviously is not just productivity, but I do see there's a cost there, because I think Joanne brought it up several times that, in retail you don't give as many holidays as the city gets, and I see this as not necessarily a holiday, but 4 more days, that's almost adding another week. And I do understand, like I said, I'm not disputing anything that you said about how good they are. My concern is just, it's really hard to look at it and say we're giving basically a week vacation when I know the people out there struggling. We talked about this with the water bills, working 2 to 3 jobs, aren't getting another week at their job. That's a lot of more time off. I'm okay with the 2 days around Christmas and New Year's, because those are low productivity days. There's a lot of people gone anyway. A lot of private businesses are off. A lot of governments have closed. I'm okay with those 2. The other 2, I'm just not okay till we get rid of that 0.5. So before I move on,
Are you finished? No. If you
with
had another
that
que-
point, yeah.
How many more do you have?
A couple. I was up all night looking at
So
this.
do we want to do this and just? I mean, it's all your. Give me a nod in your head if you want each of you to be able to finish all your questions and get it off, and then and you can comment if the question is the same. Is that going to progress this a little bit smoother? I'm just looking to.
If she's bringing up something we're interested in, then we can chime in.
That's right,
Otherwise,
you can.
They'll be bringing up the same stuff.
And then I can
she
All
chime
right,
in if
good.
I
Then
think of
keep
something.
going, because I like this. I hope
Yeah.
the rest of you
Okay.
like it.
That's why I keep looking at you to see
No,
when
no,
you
go
want me
ahead.
to be quiet.
No,
You're
go.
looking for the hook.
I'm looking for her to pull me
What
up.
we want to be sure is, as our city manager said, we need to come to terms on this. So this is the time to do it.
So that's kind of where I personally stand on that. I think it's, like I said, I 100% agree with you in theory. I'm just really concerned about the finances. I'm just not quite sure we're out of this recession totally. I don't feel that comfortable personally, just from what I'm seeing in the general economy with gas and everything that we're all facing. So I'm just not comfortable yet. So, but I'm okay with the 2 days. When we talk about police and fire, I think we need to do that. With the cost, when you're looking, that looks to me like it's a cell. You can say this is an emergency. If we lose a firefighter and it costs us $100,000 plus to rehire him, that seems like that's a hit to the budget. My concern, though, is if you break that over 3 years, does it really help? I mean, it seems like it's just like just not helping rather than do that at once. Get that one fixed. Get that salary structure fixed, because if we're doing it over 3 years and we're worried about people going somewhere else, I think in 3 years those people, if they're going to go, they're going to go. And then my other issue on that is, I think what I've heard from talking to some of the fire and police is the whole salary structure. I think maybe they need to form a committee and look at that, because that steps, if they're out of whack with everybody else, I don't know if our one-time fix is going to fix it.
If I could,
Yes,
Madam Mayor, Councilmember Loretano, one thing that I was talking with Councilman Yowzer today, I mean, you could, for example, say, look, we're going to do the first year of that 3-year plan. And next year, if the economy is still recovering, if it's still going positive, as I believe it will be, if it's still going positive, then we can bite off the last 2 years in one.
Together.
And you can make that direction to me to make sure to look at it from that standpoint as we prepare next year's, but a year from now's budget. I mean, so that is certainly a possibility.
Any response to Councilwoman Osborne?
Well, I believe we need to fix this structure regarding police and fire. I was more in tune of doing what we could for this year, not the full lump sum. Just because everything we're doing, we're taking in bites, and I believe that if you truly can say, come back next year, we can fix it completely now, I'd feel comfortable with. I also, well, we'll wait till you continue on before I don't want to step on too much. So.
Joe?
I have a tendency, the bike, take it in stride, 1 year first, take a look at the second year. Because I'm a firm believer, easy, steady as we go to make sure we don't overstep ourselves on the financial. When it comes to the other thing that you taught, I really believe we got to do something for the employees. And I can appreciate the position on the 2, and I can appreciate the half a cent. But from my perspective, I don't have a problem with the extra 2 days. I really don't. It translates almost into same if you gave them a lump sum after they get their taxes. If you gave them $1,000 and with their taxes, you're looking at $500. If they got 4 days, there's something of value that's more than $500 for most of them. That's why I personally think I don't have a problem with the recommendation on the additional time, because they've had 4 years without it, and I realize, there's tough sledding out there for all, but I think it's the most cost-effective way to show that we care without putting an additional burden on the finances.
Councilman Campbell?
I agree with Councilmember Laurentano concerning the steps. I think we have way too many steps. 16 versus 8 or 4 or all the other cities. We're the only one that's out of sync, and I think we need to take a look at it. I know it was passed in 2007, but I wasn't a member of the council then.
Councilman Souza?
Monetarily, what does the 2 days do for the employee from a salary, monetarily? It gives them 2 days off, and it doesn't do anything as far as take-home pay is concerned. He's going to get the same pay.
That's true.
But they're not working.
You're not working, you're giving them something.
What's he going to do with the 2 days? He's going to go on vacation or something? Spend money that he doesn't have?
I think our city manager has a comment.
No, I was just going to say, I mean, the employees, I have no idea what the general employees would say to that. However, the employees are very appreciative of the extra time off. I can tell you that for sure. They are. It gives them the opportunity to spend more time with their families and things like that. So it's not something that should be looked at negatively, but certainly I understand your concern, Councilmember Sousa.
I'm going to interject my opinion. Gary, I'm sorry. Do you have an opinion on this, Councilman Gelser?
I have two technical questions I'd like to ask first.
Are they on this subject?
We're on the budget.
No.
I know, just on what we're talking.
Okay,
then
on this subject, my feeling is if you gave up the 2 additional holidays in lieu of merit increase and you swapped out the $1,200 compensation based on performance, you're netting $400,000 difference. I'd like to see some cash given to the employees. The other thing, so that's kind of where I stand. I can go either way, but I'm pretty much with Councilman Souza. I think we need to show some gratification and some cash towards the employees this year. It's time. I don't think we can take all 2 million of it, but I sure would like to see
Some segment of it, that's for sure.
But I would like to see a segment of it, and it's a one-time, and I want it to be as a one-time bonus, not as a we're moving steps, we're mucking around with base salaries or anything else. This is more of a thank you for working with the city. The second thing is several of you have chimed up about the 0.5% sales tax, and as our city manager points out, the 0.5% sales tax is basically worth $5 million a year. And we need that $5 million. We actually need, if you really look at our budget, to get us back to where we were in 2007, 2008, we need $10 million a year in additional revenues to provide merit increases, to provide step increases, to do some of the projects that we really are working around doing. However, we are returning to the citizens a reduction in a basic necessity sales tax on food. And that is going to be $375,000 as a best estimate. It's probably going to be somewhere in the tune of $400,000. So we are whittling away, as everybody wants to say, well, I want to give back the half-cent that we put in 2 years ago. Well, we're whittling it away, but we're whittling it away on items that are essential to your life, not on discretionary spending. And my feeling is, consumption is your choice. So that's kind of where I stand. Thank you.
Any comment on the subject matter that we talked about?
Well, many of the constituents that have complained to us or talked to us about this were the ones that wanted that half-cent sales tax taken away and or the restaurant tax reduced. So that's where we're coming from. I'd love to give everybody a raise, but we really need to think about this.
The other thing, since I haven't made an opinion on this, and I'm going to give my opinion, it's not last, but if I wait till then, I'll never remember it. Councilman Souza suggested that tonight, that I should wait till last always, but you'll never hear from me then.
Protocol.
I'm concerned about the half-cent sales tax because I was one of those proponents that said, next year I want it gone. Looking at the budget, understanding it now, understanding it compared to what we're doing right now, what the economy's doing, what the nation's doing, what the state's doing, what we're doing, I don't see it's going to be realistic to be able to do that. So, I'm changing my tune. I want to look at it next year because, again, we really are not sure what the revenue is. We're assuming this is what the revenues. They may be more and they may be less. So I know we have to be very hesitant on that. I do like the idea of having the one step 1 year and then looking at it the second year and doing 2 steps. I think that's more responsible because, again, there's a lot of question out there whether or not we really can afford to do this. So those are my 2 opinions on that. I was one of those people years ago wanted the grocery tax, lowered. But when we started getting in trouble, I wasn't such a proponent of it. So I'm listening to you, but I worry about it. And I do agree with Councilman Loretano. You always worry about the people that are out there working real hard, not getting raises, people that have been laid off. I mean, there is a segment of the population, and then we're saying, well, we're going to do this and this and this, we're going to raise this and this. Are employees worth it? Absolutely. Have they made lots of sacrifices? Absolutely. I think your presentation tonight was very clear on that. Do I think we need to do something? Yes, I do. Have I decided exactly what it is? Not yet. So continue. Who's the next one that has some questions? Joanne?
I didn't know Sherry.
Oh, Sherry. Oh, Sherry, you have some more. Excuse me. Go ahead.
I have one more. Then
No, it's okay. Go ahead. Go ahead.
I just had a question. It was on page 38 with the property tax, or 39 with the property taxes. Last year, the vice mayor made a suggestion to bring it down to 1.42 with some funds, and was it the water fund that we used to bring that
It's a
down?
one-time fee. One-time.
My concern is a while ago we had a presentation, and now that it's back up to 0.16, we were the 3rd highest property taxes in the valley. So that's a concern that I think we need to look at too, and I just want to put that on the table when we're talking about all that. If we've still got all these high taxes, I just have some concerns.
Or do you respond to this? Respond to the taxes? $1.60?
The only thing is, excuse me, I know last year we took money out of the enterprise fund, $1.5 million, so we could get a break. Try to get the water totally off the property tax because they were using water and sewer bond to pay the property tax. we're still dropping the overall levy by $900,000. So taxes aren't going up, they're going down. Unfortunately, since the, values of homes have been dropping, that's part of the reason. We still have to be able to cover our debt service. I think if you probably do the numbers, and maybe the finance director has a better idea, or John has a better idea, but my feeling is since our taxes, the actual levy is going down, there are people who are still going to see a drop in their taxes, but there are going to see some people who are going to see a small increase in the overall tax. If I did my calculation correctly, and I was sharing it with the finance director early, I think my overall, if I did it right, was going up $19. So, and again, to reiterate, we're dropping $900,000 on the taxes, overall taxes. So the rate's going up, but the taxes we collected are going down significantly, almost $1 million as a result of the assessed valuation. So I hear you on the $1.60, but unfortunately, I think we're in times right now where we still got to pay our debt service, and secondary property tax is what we use to pay our debt service.
Just as, Madam Mayor, Councilmember Pizzillo, just as one point, people's property taxes may go up roughly $5 because what the state legislature did this year. As you know, as you may have noticed, they switched the assessed values off of business onto residentials. And that's causing a slight tax increase. So it's a state legislative mandated thing in order to get taxes off of the businesses.
Yeah, well, it's always, it's always great to say you want to lower taxes, and we all want to lower taxes, but you have to look what the financial conditions that are surrounding us before we make too many deep cuts.
Well, I don't think necessarily to cut it this year, but it's just a concern that we're going back up and
Sure.
we're number 3. I think we need to be aware of where we stand.
Councilman Gelser.
This is more of a follow-up and a technical question, and it's probably for Larry. Assessed valuation on your presentation on page 6, we've been going down for the last 3 fiscal years. My question is, and I know assessed valuation lags by 2 years or 18 months. Next year, have we hit the bottom yet in this best? And it's a best guess more than anything else.
Larry, would you come to the
You
table and
wouldn't
give us
like
your
my
best
answer,
guess?
so I'll let Larry give it.
Oh, good. Okay, fine. That answers Councilwoman Loretano's question.
Mayor, Lord, Councilman Gelser, I'll give you a very direct answer. No, this isn't the bottom. I would be surprised if that assessed valuation stayed at this level. Our preliminary calculations, if you'll forgive that I'm doing this out of memory and therefore have some senility rights issues I can claim, but as I recall, we expected from meetings we've had with the county, preliminary information they've given us, we're expecting another drop next year, I believe, of about 10% total to that number. After that, what the issue becomes is, and keep in mind that, when I say next year, that's 12-13, next budget session. That was the notice that you got in the mail in about February or March on your house. That's when that takes effect. Now, there's still protests going on. We can't nail that one down. So then the question, that in theory is the value of the property January 1st of 2011.
So your best guess is that our next year's valuation is going to be somewhere around 600,000, period, and that probably
600 million.
I'm sorry, 600 million. Yeah.
600,000 we're in real trouble.
Be real.
Yeah, give me the I was reading. Just messed up. Okay. So that's a number, and then as a result of that, property taxes, as Council Vice Mayor has said, the total levy is going to go down, and we're going to have to deal with that next year also. Okay.
That would be next year.
All right. Thank you.
Councilman Osborne.
Back to the other areas. So, Sherry, you said you agreed with the 2 additional days off in the holidays, which very low productivity. Totally understand that. Not in my case, but
Yeah, you're business.
yeah.
I hope not.
No, that's right. That's right. Okay. And did you the $1,200 compensation based on performance? Did you say anything about that? Or did
You
were going on the
I
two?
was going with the holidays. At this point, my personal thing is, as long as we said we have this emergency, and from what
Yes,
John
I-
just said, that we had a structural deficit without it, it's hard to say that if we didn't have this extra money that we're taking from the taxpayers
Right,
to pay extra money.
okay.
I just have a problem with that. And it's nothing against anybody personally. I think everybody does a great job. It's just,
No, I agree with you.
I
I agree with
can't
you.
do it right now.
Okay, but, well, and you were on board with fixing of the compensation.
Yeah,
plan
and I'm
for
okay
fire
with,
police.
I'm okay with the 1-2 split.
1-2 split,
That we look
okay.
at it again.
And myself, no, I do not believe in 2 additional paid days off. I don't. You know, as policymakers, the difference between the policymakers and the manager is that if we were to say, John, you know what, we believe that the employees do deserve that $1,200 compensation. I agree. You know, there are niceties about having a day off, but cash is cash. It goes hand in hand, because some people will want to be with their families and have those days off. Some will say, no, you know what, I'd rather have that extra cash. So, you know, it's going to be split. But as a policy from a group, I remember we both asked this question, I want to say back in January or February. If we were to say to you, what does a 3% decrease across the board in departments in their budgets mean? What would those figures be? I mean, because if we were to say, you know what, I am thrilled. You know, a year ago, I said to this council, excluding the ones new here, that, you know, I wanted to see that grocery food tax be separated and come down. I'm thrilled that we're all discussing that. But you know what, if we were to say, I'd rather it be 0.5% rather than the 25%. And if we were to say, I want to see the employees get that $1,200 compensation, maybe they don't get the 2 days off of holidays, even though it makes sense because people just aren't very productive. But, or they just take the day off and they don't get paid at all. But by asking you that question, show us, what does a 3% decrease across the board in departments mean? What kind of money are we talking about then? You know?
Excuse me. Madam Mayor, Councilmember Osborne, basically, off the top of my head, it means $1.5 million more dollars, because we have a total budget of $53 million in the general fund, and so 3% of that would be $1.5 million.
Okay.
Finding $1.5 million would be very difficult.
Very difficult.
Very difficult. Okay.
But, I mean, if you wanted us to do that, I mean, we'll go do it.
Well, you know, I'm just listening to what people are wanting, and I'm not saying at that yet, but I'm just looking at what we have. So many things to discuss here. Going on some other items here. You know, I know we have a special meeting after this one. The items that we're going to have to discuss that are possibilities. Is that in here at all?
I'm sorry,
With the work?
oh, no,
No.
that was in your separate packet.
That's
No, I
his.
know, but are those figures of some items that we're going to be having to be looking at financially?
I didn't
impact?
see them in there, but they are segregated funds.
Okay.
So it
So we
should
don't
not,
need to be,
depending on how budgets come out, it should break about even on what has been set aside from the reserved funds.
Oh, that, yes, that should be,
so
it should be
Yeah.
covered.
because I just saw some of the revenues that would not be coming in, and so I was concerned that it would impact this. Okay.
Yeah, and as Rourke said, some of the reserves are more, well, I wouldn't say more than sufficient, but I believe that they will be sufficient to cover what we have to cover.
There's about 5.7 million of the reserve construction funds that have been set aside for the last several years that should be dedicated to the various infrastructure projects. Now, could break a little bit either way depending on how the final contracts after the bids come in, but should be adequate.
Okay. Now, just to clarify for me, in here you have 2 additional holidays in lieu of merit increase would be 94,000.
Yes.
But you just said 2 days of payroll is 256,000. So I'm confused. What's the difference?
This is police and fire only are affected here, and so, because of their overtime. And so that's why
Oh, okay. So
that
this-
those additions are divided by two would be 47.5 in police and fire overtime.
You have to cover the police and fire shifts.
Oh, I
Gary,
know.
can you
No, I know
use your
that.
microphone? Would you
I
pull it up
understand.
somewhere near you?
Sorry.
Thank you.
You have to cover the police
Yeah.
and fire, but if you, again, if you eliminate the 2 additional holidays and you decide to go with a net, with a one-time
Compensation.
compensation, there's a difference there. It's not 500,000, it's 400,000.
Right. Okay.
We also have a lot of non-exempt employees, whether they're there or not. You're cutting a check.
Yeah, everybody's gonna get a check, or,
That's
except
why
for
it's-
except for 4 people who may not be with us
Right.
anymore.
Okay.
Next.
Should we move on? Does everybody
I think
keep going? What is the construction sales tax being spent on, since it's supposed to be one-time use funds?
Oh, boy.
Larry.
What is construction sales tax being spent on? And that's the one-time things in here, right?
Yes, the one-time items in the budget, construction sales tax would go towards it. The key that we worry about is not where that dollar is spent as compared to prior year's fund balance. The key to it is that it's not used for operations. That's what we try to monitor.
Would that be part of the Loma design concept then?
No, because, not specifically, because that would be impact fees and the contributions are what we're assuming there.
But if we can't use impact fees, could that be used for that?
Yes, it could go.
But the
If
3
there's-
million
if
is-
there's funding there,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, I'm sorry.
Well, have you already
The-
spent the 3 million?
It's part of, do you remember the pie? The 3 million's in that pie. So it's part of your sources.
Which pie?
And basically where it's, much of it's going to page 43.
Page 43.
And these are one-time uses. These are the economic development projects, the economic development job credits, the risk management claims, the risk management consultant, part-time labor, city council initiatives.
Isn't 2 million of it going to the El Cedro payment?
Well,
Or it could be?
it could be, yeah.
Okay,
Maybe.
And that's obviously something we have to do.
right, okay.
Okay,
Shoot.
all right. You mentioned in the fleet that, how many vehicles were replaced in 2011? You said that coming up for 2012, it's 23 vehicles being replaced. How many were replaced this year?
Just one moment, please.
Oh, here comes Mark.
Mr.
Sorry about that. Mark Flynn from Public Works. 24 vehicles were replaced in the last fiscal year.
And Mark, while you're here, or John, you stated that some of the money would be in reserve for 2013 also,
Yes.
and how much was that?
That would be,
A little over $500,000. What we
So
had
half a million. Okay. All right.
You're quite welcome.
I have a question. So the 500 that you're going to have in reserve, is that counting the 500 from last year that we didn't spend?
No.
This is this is a new 500,000.
it's the net of what will be available.
Okay.
Will be 500,000.
And we're going to carry it over.
For next year, yes.
Okay.
If we decide on that.
Well, I mean, that's what I meant.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Now, I appreciate that you brought back, should I go on? Do you want me to?
No, yes, go ahead. There's nobody has any comments to your last statement? Go on.
Regarding construction sales tax? Okay. I have other questions. And first of all, I apologize for being late. I was at that MAG meeting.
I already explained why
Okay.
you were, we
I
knew you weren't
appreciate
just
that.
out there having fun.
Bumper to bumper.
Right. Okay, so shall we discuss the Loma Linda and the fire fee schedule? Would anybody like to start talking about that one?
I'd like to talk about the user fee.
Okay,
inspections are done once a year,
Yes.
correct?
Yes. At the, excuse me, the first year will be once a year, because once the inspection is done, then we go to it every 2 years, I believe it is, for the low risk.
Okay.
Yes.
So if this is done once a year, when you open a business, this is done, and it's free for the first 2 times that you inspect this?
Right now, yes,
And the third time you inspect me, then it would be $90?
that's correct.
Do your inspectors give me a complete list, so I have a whole list of what has to be done?
I
So that
believe
when they
so.
come back again, they don't find something else, and then they come back again and they find something else?
I believe so, yes. They should.
Can we be sure?
We will.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That,
Thank you.
that worries me. And this is another expense for the new business owner. This is over and above his permits and fees and everything else he gets. And this is part of the packet, and that is explained to him when he opens his business,
Mm-hmm.
that he has to do all of this. Then, before he can open, he has to have this inspection.
Not before he can open. This would be.
After.
Yeah. I mean, this, I would think that the first year, if I open a business next month, I'm not going to pay a fee.
Okay. So, but what I'm getting at is the inspection that you do for me to open, the occupancy open
Okay.
fee, that's not this one. That's not called a user fee.
No.
Okay, thank you.
That's paid for your regular permits.
Okay, thank you very much.
As a follow-up on the user fee, I have a different perspective, I guess, when it comes to that. My feeling on it is I can appreciate the other communities charge that fee, and I can appreciate they call it user recovery. My feeling is those inspections, when they're done, benefit everybody. If I'm getting a haircut, or if I'm in a grocery store, I'd like to think that the place is safe and, there's no toxic material or whatever. And from my perspective, I think since everybody benefits from those, to me, general tax dollars should cover it, not user fee. And again, that's where I come from. I do, though, believe that if you're inspecting, if somebody goes out there and inspects it and they find something, and then the second time they go back, they haven't done it, I think the third time you should make it so that there's a great incentive so they're not sending people back and forth there unnecessarily. So from my perspective, I think the third time should be more than $90. It should be more of a thing to make sure they're not coming back the third time. But I really believe that the entire community benefits for them, and I don't believe the fee should be there. That's just my personal.
So like if you fail, you pay?
After
your third strike,
you go
you-
out and you give them a notice, and then they don't do it the second time you come back. They got to come back the third time. That's when I think they should be hit.
So if they haven't corrected it,
Yeah, if they haven't
refuse to
corrected
correct it.
But I think the overall inspection benefits everybody. So I think general tax dollars should cover it. And again, that's just a philosophical where I kind of come from in that perspective.
Thank you. I would like to put in my 2 bits on that. I have to tell you, as a business owner, for 20 years, I have never paid a fire inspection fee. And that included Phoenix, that includes Goodyear. Quite frankly, I believe that I agree with you, Joe. I believe that's something that our fire department, they come in, they're getting to know the business owners, they're being part of the community. They come in, they start doing inspection, and I'm probably considered a low or medium risk. They see the back of my store, I'm a medium risk. But the point is, though, they come in and they're being part of the community. And if they get a call, they leave. And then they come back to finish the inspections. 20 years, I'm sorry. This was a mistake of mine that I did not notice this when we were looking at that fee schedule a year ago. I did not see that. Now, I totally agree. If by the third time that business has not fixed those issues, they need to have their hands slapped. It should have been done. But if fire inspector comes the second or third time and says, oh, now I noticed this, or now I noticed this, they can't expect them to have it done in that same, it should be a new written up issue. But the other problem is that we've run into on brand new builds is that I've been hearing from our business community that they're saying I'm brand new business, fire inspector comes in, sees things, writes me up, I call out the people to fix it, then they come back and they say now I found something new, and if they had seen it in the first place, it wouldn't have cost this business again to have them come out. So we want to make sure that that's not occurring. these high risk companies that take 6 and 8 hours, that's a little different of a concern for me. You know, that does take quite a bit of time. And I did notice that the benchmarks you were using were fairly large cities. Mesa, Phoenix, Peoria. I mean, those are not small towns like we are. What was the average? You had a broad range there. So what's the average for the high risk occupancy? That's 6 to 8 hours. What was that?
I can't really answer that right now, but we'd be happy to get that information back for you. And those that don't have a fee right now, many of them are considering a fee because everybody's looking for ways to raise funds, quite frankly.
On those high risk 6 to 8 hour jobs, was this zero then? I mean,
Yeah.
were we zero and now we're what? On average?
What is that, 100?
It's $100 is what
Okay,
the
it's
fee is.
$100 for 6 to 8 hours for a high risk. You know, I'm okay with that, quite frankly.
I'd like to comment that. I think high risk should tell you we should have it.
Yeah.
A high risk
agree.
means something can happen, a fire can happen. So I have no complaint at all with $100 for the high risk.
Do you, I'm just trying to find out where you're at because 8 hours in a high risk is worth a lot more than $100.
Sure.
Are you suggesting that maybe we
No.
make that one higher?
Oh, I haven't made any suggestion of that. I'm just looking at what's in front of me. It says high, you had
Well,
determined $100 for a high risk.
And we just, we haven't determined anything. I mean, this is something that was presented to you last May. I mean, so, but we can take a look at that from that specific standpoint as to what is a high risk worth. And if we should have a low risk and a medium risk as being free, I mean, that doesn't cause me a problem.
Councilman Campbell?
Thank you. John, on page 62, where you say high risk 100 per year, this you're telling me that this fee of the $100 a year was approved by the City Council last May of 2010?
We
Okay.
approved it.
Okay, y'all, it was
And
approved.
we're
Okay.
just implementing
It
it.
all was.
Okay. I know everyone in this room, as well as I do, we assume every business we go into is safe and it's been inspected. It's just a given. I never think about when I go into Whataburger or Jack in the Box or anywhere, to Joanne's store, that it has not been inspected. And I would rather the low risk not have to pay. I think we ought to up the high risk because we're doing 8 to 10 hours inspection. And I do agree with Joe that we need to, if an inspector has to come back the third time, we need to make the fine stiff enough, and they know that up front, that they have to have everything done. Because we certainly don't want a fire or a tragedy because some business owner was lax in getting fixed what was caught by an inspector.
I have a question. Because a medium risk, you've got fast foods. So they've
That's
got
a grease
kitchens.
I assume that's because of the grease.
They've got equipment that needs to be inspected.
Yeah.
Grease fire or something, maybe, you know.
Fast food restaurants are some of the
So
restaurants
to me,
are one of your
it
biggest.
says it's a medium risk, but to me, I look at that as a high risk. With the possibility of fires and I look at hotels and apartments and the storage areas and what people store in some of their areas is high risk. I mean,
Well,
yes.
are we saying that we want the city manager to review the fees that are going to be charged for a high-risk business? Is that what we're telling him? Rather than going from 100, do we escalate the 100 to 250, or what figure are we looking at?
Well, they've never paid anything yet, right? I mean,
That's correct.
It was just being implemented.
Yeah, it's being implemented as of July 1st. I mean, so there's still time to.
How do,
To tweak it.
Yeah.
John, how do we categorize businesses in the category? Because there's going to be people who are going to be medium-risk businesses that are going to say, I'm a low-risk business, and there are going to be high-risk people who say they're a medium-risk. Do we have any kind of standard set, or does fire department have based on if you have this, this, and this, you're a high risk, or?
I don't know. If you'd like an answer tonight, we can try to.
Well,
I mean, I can get you an answer. But
we can move along. My feeling is, I like Councilman Pizzillo's idea that this is, inspections are part of the general services that the city does. I would like to see the projected revenue, $64,000. If you can make the low-risk people free for the first and second time, and if we have to come back, they need to be whacked. And the medium and the high-risk people should pay the balance, and I think we're good to go. Because they're going to be the ones that take the most time. And let me put it this way. A fire marshal costs a lot, when a building inspector costs a lot more than $10 an hour.
yeah.
You're right. You're right. I like your suggestion.
Okay.
No?
If
Next?
I
Yeah, go ahead.
could just explore this a little further.
Yes.
So what I hear is a general consensus that we should stop the implementation process on this fee and take a new look and come back to you with a new proposal. It would obviously be after the break, and taking into consideration things that have been said tonight. And we can certainly do that if that's what I'm hearing correctly.
Well, you could take the low risk off, the $25, and put it on the high risk.
Well,
Probably better to hold.
no, I would appreciate you bringing it back.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, we can catch up. I mean, this is not something that, we can, one, pass it and implement it with an emergency declaration, because it should have been passed, it should have been implemented on July 1. And so if we do this in September, we can still catch up with the inspections over the budget year and still net out the
Okay.
$64,000, which is what we're trying to, we're basically trying to recover the cost of what it costs us to do
To-
these
to-
things.
To pay for the fire inspector. I
Yeah.
understand that. Is everybody in agreement with that?
Yeah.
All right, John, you got your
Yeah,
orders on
thank you.
that?
Thank you.
Do we want to come to consensus on a few items that you've been waiting for us to come to consensus on? And John, would you like to start off with, I think that we talked about a number of things, but we're looking at compensation. We did not come to a consensus on this.
What I heard was basically a lack of consensus as far as the 2 days go. I mean, the 2 days for Christmas and New Year's, I think is fine. The question is the other 2 days, and I've heard both questions about or suggestions to take a one-time payment, and that would be from. This is what I heard, at least, or what I'm assuming, hoping I heard, is take that from the $2 million, because that's one-time monies. And if you implement anything that isn't one-time, that eats up the $100,000 very quickly that we have the surplus of. And so you're back into a structural deficit, whether it's $5,000 or $200,000. And I guess I'm looking, I haven't heard enough as far as what your desires are for that one-time need for whatever you call it, a performance payment or something like that. We're trying to avoid the word bonus.
Which one specifically, John, is it?
One-time performance.
Yeah, I guess the performance.
What page is that on, John?
It's on
Oh,
69.
yeah, I
The,
got you.
the 2% or the $1,200?
Yeah.
Is that what you're picking up, right, John?
Yes.
Okay.
Again, I don't know if you have any surveys from the employees. First of all, I like Wally's suggestion also. Down the road, I think we need to take a further look at, the steps. I know why, as a former employee, I know why we have 16 steps, but when you're competing against different organizations, and again, it's not going to be something settled today, I just think it's something you may want to look at down the road, just make sure we're competitive with other organizations, because they have shorter steps than the 16. But I feel very strongly, in fact, it was at a couple events this week, whether it was the firefighters passing a check for $4,000 at our Rotary for the homeless youth, to our police officers, doing a car wash for the fallen, officer in Buckeye. I was at both of those. And that's just two examples. We've got employees, not just public safety, constantly not just taking care of the daily business, as shown by the fact that our employees per thousand, now we're under 8. I mean, they were as high as 12 at one time. So we've got employees that are doing more with less. Okay, we've got the government has shrunk. That's why, again, I'm concerned with the half-a-cent sales tax, just dropping it, because I really think we're to the bone right now with under 8. I was reading some East City in the newspaper is at 11, and they're taking grief for 11 employees per 1,000.
11.5.
11.5, okay, and we're under 8, okay? So I think we've done a good job of contracting the government and doing more with less. I guess the question is how do we show it? Because I'm a firm believer for any organization to succeed, whether it's public or private, you got to take care of both your human capital and your tangible capital. I mean, your equipment and your people. They're the ones that are going to make or break any organization. So, we've got to find a way. My biggest concern, though, is, again, a little bit like Sherry, is that the structural deficit, I think it's important to try to get rid of that first so that we're moving in an upward trend. We're now bottom line. But I'd like to, show them something. And I really liked the suggestion, on the time, because they had something to walk away with. If you give them $1,000, they're going to have $500 in their pocket by the time Uncle Sam gets done with them. Or $1,500,
So
they're going to have $750.
you're saying the days off? Is
I
that what
like
you're
the
saying?
days, because what's going to happen if you give them the money, you can't afford that much. If you gave them $1,000 or you gave them $1,500, by the time you take out Social Security, the additional retirement out of them, the state taxes, the federal taxes, they walk away with $700. And if you spread that over, 26 pages,
26,
whatever case, they get a couple bucks. Where with time, it's something tangible that they can use with their family and whatever. I appreciate the cash in the pocket, I really do, Councilmember Sousa, but by the time Uncle Sam gets done with them, in my view, the most cost-effective way to show our appreciation, and again, it's just my humble opinion, is the time.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Pizzillo, or Councilmember Pizzillo, if I could just add on to that. The reason we came down in the recommendation that we did in this fashion was that, A, the 1 day for satisfactory, 2 days for outstanding serves as an incentive. If you just give a lump sum, I mean, that's no incentive. Everybody's going to get the lump sum, and whatever they think of the 500 or whatever they get in their pocket, it's gone the next day, as we all know. At least they have the 2 days to look forward to, if they can achieve the 2 days, or the 1 day that they can look forward to. That was my thinking. Plus, my thinking also entered into the sustainability of any type of increase. Now, a one-time increase, or not increase, a one-time payment would be the same as the 2 days, in the effect that we aren't adding to the structural deficit. But those are the thoughts that went into the recommendation that was submitted to you.
Well, I'd like to hear how many of you feel the 2 additional holidays in lieu of a merit increase. That's what you're talking about.
Yes.
All right, let's just get some nodding of heads. Let's try to give them an idea how you're feeling about that.
No.
No?
No.
No. You don't want to give them 2 days off?
No.
You want to?
He wants money.
Money. Okay, I just want to be sure.
I think I stated before, I'm okay with the 2 days, not the 4 days at this point, just because of the economic indicators. And you've done a very good job managing through that. Our employees haven't had to give furloughs. And as other cities do their budgets now, there's still furloughs right now. We still have 10% unemployment. I just don't feel comfortable this year.
But 2 days,
2 days for the Christmas area.
Councilman Gelser?
I can go either way. I'm happy with a cash payment, as Councilmember Sousa suggested, and I can also go with the 4 days off, the 2 holiday days and the 2 additional days. I don't really care. It's
Split.
it's small change.
All right,
We have to do something.
Councilwoman Campbell?
I agree with
The
Councilman.
2 days, okay. Councilman Osborne?
Well, I believe the 2 days, I would be actually, I could be convinced of letting them have the 2 days off without pay, the day after Christmas, day after New Year's, without pay, and giving the $1,200 compensation based on performance.
So you're saying you do not want 2 additional holidays
I
in lieu
wouldn't,
of the
I
merit?
do not believe
So
in
yours is
4
no.
No.
I think we're all over the board. I'm for the recommendation.
And I am too, so we're looking at about 5 of us are looking at 2 additional holidays in lieu of a merit increase.
Can I make a suggestion
Yes.
too, when it comes time to the budget? Something similar to what we did last year, if we can put something like that on the side, so that you have the vote of the budget, and then maybe, then there'll be a record of who's supporting what, as far as the vacation. That way, we're not getting all bogged down on the day-to-day budget on one issue.
Sure. I just want to get this moving because we're going around in a circle here. We're discussing things over and over again. We're coming to without a consensus. So
How
that's
many are for the 2?
we have 5 of us,
Just the 2, not the 4.
just the 2.
Okay.
2 additional holidays in lieu of a merit increase. So we
I'm
have
for the 4, but
So we have 5 of us that voted.
it doesn't appear to be enough support for the 4, is what
No.
you're saying.
So,
But I think it would be helpful to split it like we did the last budget with a couple, issues that not everybody was in agreement with. So that way, what happens is we speed the process up and you don't bog it down. So, just a suggestion.
okay.
Oh, sure.
I like that idea. That's
Okay.
good work.
I would just ask now, okay, what do you want to do? Because you've just taken away from the recommendation, so. And this was a no-cost recommendation.
This 2 holiday was a no cost. So
No
you're-
actual dollar cost.
No dollar cost. So you're adding a dollar cost.
No, I wasn't adding any dollar cost. My understanding, 4 wasn't no, 4 was a dollar cost, right?
No, the 2
They're
days
still paying for something. I
for
know that
Christmas,
doesn't-
those
No,
are,
but
that's
it's
the $94,000.
Okay.
Additional.
The
Okay.
2 additional days in lieu of merit are, quote, free, only in the sense that there's a productivity impact, but not, because we're managing through that as far as, okay, you can only have this guy's day off and that day off, so there's no actual increase to the budget.
Here,
Well, it sounds
right
like
here,
I'm in the
right here.
minority. I was for the recommendation, but that's not what I'm hearing here.
Okay, are you all right? All right, decide upon, all right, John, what is the next issue we need to?
Well, the next issue was what I just asked, was, is there something that you want to substitute that, taking that away from the employees, the recommendation? What do you want to do with the Councilmember Sousa's suggestion of one-time payments or what?
Well, I was looking at, across the board raise for all employees, whether it's 2%, 3%. Let me say that. What are we waiting for on the rainy day fund? A cloudburst? What's it for? It's a need, and by God, we need it. Those people out there need it.
Well, it'd
Like,
have to be a
for
one
4
time.
years.
It wouldn't be a continuous raise. I mean, they wouldn't have it the next year. It would be just paid off because it's one-time money, so
Well, that-
we wouldn't, it would be just like a bonus,
That's up
essentially
for
a
you
bonus.
folks next year.
per day.
But right now, I want those,
Yeah.
that's what, next year, that's up to you, but right now, I want those folks taken care of with some monetary increase in salaries, whether it's 1 year or one time, whatever. Go to the rainy day fund and take the money out. I mean, we can do that. It's gonna sit there and sit there and sit there.
Well, I would propose, as we look, speaking of rainy day fund, as we're looking at some of those items that we still have to discuss, and you stated change of policy regarding the rainy day fund, correct? Gives us roughly $2.5 million. Didn't we, $2 million? $2 million? And we came to consensus, didn't we, on that we would change that policy?
That was my understanding.
That we did, so that's roughly
You
$2
want
million.
to pass that around the table and make sure?
That-
Yeah, I'm there.
All right?
We haven't
Good.
spent any, we haven't allocated any of that money.
Right, that's what
No.
but that's
But
back
the
to what
consensus
Mrs.
is
Susa-
we
that's
would spend
So
it.
let's talk about that. Can we talk about that? Are you
Sure.
okay? Have you
Well, I'm
got
fine.
Still, direct? Okay. Good? Okay.
Yes, go ahead.
So allocating the $2 million, part of that could possibly be some kind of, I suggest bonus. I understand the hesitation of not doing it as a merit increase because we don't know if we can go next year continuing with that. So I can see it being a one-time bonus.
Let me just comment on the bonus.
Okay.
if there's going to be a bonus, we should make the bonus big enough so that taxes coming out of that doesn't affect greatly the take-home pay that they're going to have. Okay? Like Joe was pointing out, if you give them 1,000, you end up with 500. That ain't going to do it.
Well, I think the $1,200 bonus was good. So let's look at the allocation of $2 million. If we were to consider some of the things. Now, the reason I brought up the Loma Linda Park, I stated, at the last council meeting that, first of all, we have the design in here allocated already. However, in the 5-year plan, we have not a dime one for that park. I know that we have partners with the actual neighborhood itself and with, the church in helping trying to fundraise, but, God's behind them, of course, with that church, but coming up with $2.5 million.
God doesn't pull out his visa.
I think that money that's been in the rainy day fund, that's our citizens' money, and I think the citizens deserve to have it spent on their community. And so, everything, it just really is in line with the stars and the planets, because you got the church, you got the neighborhood, you've got this, everybody's coming around this park. It's a 35-year-old park. And I'm not saying that the full $2 million have to be used, because actually, in actuality, you have the planning of it, you have all these things that if you were only to allocate, maybe $1 million of it for this next year, and then you spread it out to the next year beyond that, we still can take care of some of these other items. The right-of-way maintenance, I had a question on, because in the CIP, I noticed that in year 15-16, it stated landscape medium being taken care of. Now, was that all the things we were already talking about, or was that just a certain area? Because it's in here in our CIP.
How much a dollar amount?
I don't know.
Is that 600?
CIP.
You talking about the,
CIP.
is that the 600 and some $1,000?
Well, 750.
Yes.
It's
715.
Page 49, my book totally fell apart.
Is it for the?
It says
the landscaping?
2015, 2016. It says provide plant material and decomposed granite to location not currently landscaped.
It's in this one.
It's
It's in the budget.
it's almost it's $200,000. It looks like. So I don't know if this is separate from what
That
we're
is.
talking about here with the $785,000.
Yes, it is.
It is separate. Huh?
No, in here.
In here?
No, in that one that you said.
Oh, page 70. So, my other thought was that the fleet, if we were to not have that $500,000 set aside for 2013 currently, because we're talking about, we've replaced 24 this year, we're talking about replacing another 23 next year. Tell me how you feel about that. Could we be using that $500,000 for something else?
If I just may add,
Please.
Councilmember Osborne, the thing that I worry about is that, okay, you're digging yourself in a hole if you do that, because we need the $500,000 in order to do, as Councilmember Pizzillo said earlier, you have to take care of your people, you have to take care of your equipment and facilities. If we don't set aside $500,000, I can guarantee you we're going to have to come up with that next year or a year from now, and so we're going to have that much more trouble finding that.
Okay.
But it's obviously something that you can do.
Well, I just wanted to have the conversation. I just want to have the conversation about these things.
Yeah, I'm always concerned when we dip into the replacement fund, because the whole idea of a replacement fund is when it comes time to replace the equipment, the money's there.
We just started it.
You know, we
just
Well, we
brought it
wipe
back
those
again.
out
I
in
hate
order-
to do
Right.
away
in order
with
to
it.
help
Just
survive.
now building it back up, so I just,
And we're gonna need a truck, a fire truck.
yeah,
pretty
I
soon.
just concerned if you start tapping that,
Okay.
you know.
Councilman
That's
Gelser?
fine. I just wanted to hear.
You're trying to figure out how to allocate $2 million out of a rainy day fund that has basically our bond raters and our, the people that buy our debt have basically said, okay, you can do this on a, as long as it's not for ongoing reasons and you maintain the financial security of it. I really, it doesn't seem like there's a lot of support for the 2 extra additional days, and that's more of a philosophical decision that you guys have made. I'm not there. I can see that. I would out of this $2 million, I would like to see us keep $1 million of it in the bank, just because something may happen and we want to have some extra money for the possible dip that may happen. I would like to see us spend, I would like to see $500,000 go to the one-time compensation, $1,200 per employee, for 2 reasons. One, it rewards everybody who's done either a satisfactory or a good, outstanding job. And 2, by giving this amount of money, we reward the people at the bottom of the pay pools dramatically more than we reward the people who are at the top of the categories. If we give a 2% based on pay, it's one thing. If we give a flat fee, that's a different thing. The other thing I would like to see us possibly start doing is sprucing up the right-of-way and making Goodyear look a little bit better. And I would like to see us take some of that money and put it into making some of the city, the streets look a little bit better. We're going to do some street repair. We ought to do some landscape and everything else. The rest of the money, boy, I would just assume, we have $55 million markers in this budget. We can always, if times are good and things, sales taxes, continue to increase as they have, revenues have increased, then, maybe next year we can start doing, a little bit more and whittling down what people don't like. But, everybody knows that I'm a tax and spend kind of guy, but I'm trying to save money so that we have some when life is really tough.
There was something that wasn't brought up, and I'm going to bring it up, is economic development and jobs and the pursuit of that. And I put in for a suggestion for the improvement corridor infrastructure on Bullard, Van Buren to Yuma. The design of it is $650,000. The construction, of course, is $6 million. But we keep talking about revenue and hope the next year is going to be better. And I just think we have to get realistic about being able to bring companies in, companies that are going to have the pay level that our citizens deserve, that they're educated to deserve. And we don't seem to be focusing on that. And so I want us to look toward doing that. The reason is we're running out of areas to bring business in built establishments, right?
We have just half of one left.
A half of one left. Okay, so if we get a company looking at us, they have to build the suit. We don't have anything, and then we don't have an attractive area for them. That bullet area doesn't even look like it's a byproduct. We're just not doing anything with it. And so I just felt that we needed to think about doing the infrastructure for that area that will attract these companies and give a better sales tool to our economic development, at least the design. And my question was, do we have to put $55 million in the improvement district?
No.
Why can't? Because improvement district, what we're doing, we're improving a district that we hope to bring some commercial people into. And so I'm asking, could we use some of that money to start this project?
Use some of the 55? No, because the 55 is non-existent.
It's not. Oh, that's the pretend money.
Yes.
Pretend money.
Oh, that's the pretend money.
Can I follow
Like
up
the
on
government.
can I follow up on what the mayor has
Yes.
suggested?
Oh, gosh.
I think that's an excellent idea, and I'd give up rock to do that. However, there is a big however. I would not spend a nickel on this improvement corridor unless you have every property owner that's along that property line signing up that they will live with the ramifications of what we do. And that's whether it's upgrade zoning or downgrade zoning. Because if somebody is going to hold off, there's no point in doing the whole corridor. So what I'm saying is, if you want to allocate, if you want to take, $600,000 for design work instead of putting beautiful rock out there and landscape material, that's fine. But those people need to be at the table and they need to be signed up for it, or this is a non-starter.
Well, go ahead.
And what we need really is to encourage these developers to build spec buildings. We have one building available right now.
A quarter of it? A quarter
We
of
need
it.
spec
Hopefully,
buildings in this city. And we know that, in the past, the ones that have been built on speculation are filled today. So why don't we encourage the developers as a council?
Well, we were hoping that would encourage by doing that infrastructure. That was one of the encouragements.
Well, we have to make it known to them, Madam Mayor, that this is imperative if they want their area to succeed.
I think one thing that I'm hearing with some of that extra money is, first of all, I'm not prepared right now to say, oh, that's a good idea. I agree with both you, Mayor, and both Councilman Osborne with regard to the park, because I think one thing, like I said, I've talked about the compensation where I'm feeling with unemployment rate right now. I just don't feel comfortable with that. I think what we need to do is reinvest in our city, and there's two things that are important. Is if we bring other businesses in, we can increase taxes, construction tax revenue, which will help get off that 0.5%.
Capital investment.
Exactly, which we'll bring back. I also think we need to look at our parks, because one thing when we met, John, you said, well, we didn't have to cut as much as any other cities. And not to be flippant, but I said, well, we didn't have as much to cut as any other cities. We weren't cutting libraries hours because we only have one library. We weren't cutting swimming pool hours because we only had one pool. We don't have what these other cities have. And when you see that, it's like, we don't have any of that. So to have a park and to move it forward, maybe not all $2 million, maybe put something towards that to start bringing that forward, something our citizens can say, you know what, I'm paying a little bit more right now, but I'm seeing something for me. If we go to a capital improvement that's bringing businesses in, when you see new businesses building, you say, that is an economic development, and that will bring businesses, that will bring people into the stores, that will bring stores, and that will boost that area. Because that area looks, I moved here in 1994, that area looks exactly the same it did in 1994. There's a stoplight. They added a stoplight.
It
That's
looks like we're closed for business.
Yeah, and it's right. And I think that's an area that we could look to develop. And I would like to hear more of that, maybe at our retreat or something. But both of those, I think,
that's
are
what we
very
were
important.
planning to have all this discussion at. You quite frankly, I mean, this is fine that you're doing this, but you quite frankly don't need to make any decisions about this evening, because we have the $16.3 million in the budget proposed. I mean, so assuming you approve the budget, you could spend, well, yeah, no, you couldn't, but you could spend the $2 million on anything you wanted to once the budget was approved. And
Can we
so-
get information on what the budgeted for the I can't even talk today. Bullard corridor, what that would cost, and what we could do with
Oh,
the
we have
park to get it
details on
started.
that, yeah.
And
Yeah,
so-
we have details on that.
Okay, so
We can talk to that at the
Yeah.
retreat.
Well, John, I guess the question is, we've talked a lot around and back around and up and down. What is it you want from us tonight? I'm
Well, I guess
assuming you wanted direction on certain things, and
The one thing that I still need definitive direction on is it $1,200? Have I heard around the table that it is the $1,200 one-time bonus or not?
I don't think you.
I don't think so.
So, okay. So I, A, need a decision about that, nothing or whatever. And then, B, the other things, we can, we're working on the council advance, so we're putting together agendas for that. And so that stuff really doesn't need to be discussed tonight or argued tonight. All of this has been very helpful.
We don't argue. Oh,
that was
please,
discussion,
We don't
not
argue.
argument.
That's why I said
clean up that
discussed, okay.
language.
Well, you-
But
Just-
otherwise, I don't think there's a whole lot that we need decisions on, other than Joanne's one suggestion about the $500,000 in the reserve for the fleet, if we're to take that, or the whatever. But I believe that the consensus around the table was, that's fine, just the way it is.
I just needed to hear how people felt about that, because last year's discussion was a little different, and so I needed to hear where people were at this point. The reason I brought up, I guess, about the the 1,200 was 1,200 per employee was because that was back into the allocation of the 2 million, and so that's why that came up.
Well, excuse me, and quite frankly, I mean, I'm just thinking, you can probably hold that decision off. Okay, as I understand it, the 2 days, Christmas and New Year's are fine. So even if you approve the budget and it goes forward with that, you can still make any decision about a one-time payment to employees come the advance, because that, in my recommendation, would be only from that 2 million because of the structural deficit.
Okay, well,
Go ahead, Josie.
what's nice about the budget, though, too, is we always budget the 16.3 contingency. It's budgeted. So what that means is, as we go forward, as you go forward, you can always, like the manager says, you don't have to make that decision now. You can later come back with the 2 million out of it, or 1.5 or 500 at any time. Bring before the council, because it's in the budget, says I want an appropriation move from X to Y, and by doing that you can make whatever decision you want to be. So I don't think it's necessary to get bogged down on that specific unless the manager needs something specific, but the fact you got an advance coming up, you can discuss all of these issues and figure out, because the 16.3 will be budgeted. Now it's just a matter if you want to peel some of that away. Does that make sense to everybody? I mean, you got time.
Okay.
Any other discussion?
It's on this or something else? Can we talk about the park?
Sure.
Okay.
I mean, I only suggest that could be discussed on June 11th. I mean, because,
The whole park?
Yeah, because that's going to be the only place we can get funding for that without cutting the budget is from the 2 million or whatever millions were.
The 119,000?
No, that's in the budget.
That's in the
Well,
budget.
that's what I want to talk about.
Oh, okay. Yeah, talk about it. I'm sorry.
Okay. The 119, with what the community has given, is going to be enough to design this park.
Yes. I don't think 119 is, because we have to come up with 200. I'm not sure how we're doing that, but we have enough money in the budget with St. John Vianney's contribution that we can design a $200,000 design for the park.
All right. Now,
I'm
sorry.
if we conclude that the development impact fees are eligible for this expenditure.
and if they're not, we've got to find some other way to
Yes.
fund it.
Yes.
Okay. My next question is, while I can appreciate the community doing a master plan,
We cannot hear you. Would you please speak in the
while I
microphone?
appreciate the community doing the master plan, is the community going to be involved in every step of this? What I don't want is this park designed and it not have what the community is expecting.
No, it's going to be, yes. it's
Because
going to be
I have been
community-based.
to many, well, not many, but 5 public forums on parks here in the city. And the parks were already designed and up on boards, and staff did not really want an input from the public because we recommended some changes and they really didn't entertain them, which would have been more beneficial. And I just want that guarantee for this community because they're so behind this. I've not seen this in the 11 years I've lived here, that
No,
we have this
absolutely.
much community involvement, and I want to nurture it, and I want them to feel that we're going to be working with them every step of the way so
Yeah.
that they have their park.
Absolutely. And I think that the proof is in the pudding. We've, the past 3 years that I'm familiar with, we very much have done that. In coming up with the design of this, we have worked hand in glove with the St. John Vianney in the neighborhood. I mean, so-
Wonderful.
And historic Goodyear.
Well, I know how active Historic Goodyear is, and we're just so delighted. Loma Linda really should be the jewel of this city because that really is the heart right now of our pool area and that. And you're going to remodel. I understand the center.
The community
You're going to
center.
make the community center larger.
Yes.
Is there? Okay, let's talk about it at the retreat. That's all I want to know.
Yeah, I think that there's a possibility you missed some of the meetings that had taken place and some of the information. I'm not sure.
No, I was there in
Maybe-
the audience. I just
okay.
didn't get to speak on it.
Oh, okay. All
Sorry.
right. Well, we'll make sure you get
Okay.
briefed on that, okay?
Good.
I think we're at the Joanne, did you have something else, please?
No, I just was going to say that if I added correctly, the not included, and this goes towards the 2 million, it looks like roughly 2.8 million is the total.
Brian, would you talk in the microphone?
If you were to.
What page is that? I'm sorry.
If you were to add up 69, if we were to do this, say that hypothetically, the $1,200 compensation, the $500,000 there, and then on page 70, you were to do the street maintenance plan, you were to do the economic development corridor, and the right-of-way maintenance. Is that am I coming up with about 2.8? 2.78?
Yes.
Okay. And then we add, say, $1 million, I'm just hypothetically, $1 million for Loma and Linda, so that would be 3.78. As I tell my husband, I want it all. So, yes, I'm spoiled, I know.
Joanne, you're worse than I am.
And Joanne, I want to bring companies in so people can go to work.
And I agree. Now, one question I have on that, and I know this goes back into this, I know you're trying to move us along. You said it was going to be $615,000 for the design of
Right.
okay.
Right.
But $6 million for construction of what?
Curbs, gutters, sewers,
And-
four
and-
lanes of road.
And on this, on this
Monument,
particular, it's enhanced landscaping, water features, and things like that. That's where the $6 million came from.
Okay, so
We have a broken down estimate.
so really though, if somebody was driving by, I mean, right now it sounds like it would be a plan on the shelf, but there would be a little bit of landscaping or something is what it was.
Right now,
I'm saying if you were to move forward with spending $615,000, and we don't have $6 million, and it's not in the CIP, nothing's there to do, what would happen with this? What would we tangibly see out
No,
of that?
nothing.
Nothing.
Yeah, unless we were able, if we had agreement from the property owners involved, and they created a self-improvement district and taxed themselves for that, if we front-ended the,
And we don't know if they're
We
interested.
don't know that
we have
yet.
not had
So-
those discussions.
Okay.
No, I kind of like Gary's idea there. I think you got to get them around the table to see if they're willing to buy into that.
Hey, if we allocate the design money and say we're gonna front the design money, there's an incentive for them to show up because,
Yes.
and then, if you're not at the table, you're lunch.
Right.
Okay.
Okay.
You are lunch.
Okay.
Anything else?
Are we moving on, or is this it?
Well, this is going to be it if we're not.
Well, are we going to discuss compensation for police and fire?
It's done.
I think
I
that's
thought
done.
we did. I thought it was where we were doing one step and then we could do
Well,
two
not
steps
exactly.
the
Well,
next.
I do want to, I want to go on record that I'm not in favor of a couple of things. I'm not in favor, what I would like to see for police, that
Could you just give us the page you're on then?
I am on page 18.
Thank you.
I don't feel that let's see how we're doing this. Okay, I'm not in favor of a step adjustment for the commander, lieutenant, and sergeant. What I want to see is the police officers get the raise, not the command staff. That's just my opinion. And for fire, and that's on page 16, I would like to see the firefighters get the step. And I know they want to phase the engineers and captains for a 3-year period, and they want to move the deputy chiefs by 1 step. And I would surmise that instead of doing that we just move. It probably will cost more money if we move everybody 1 and then just wait till next year to deal with it. Because we really need to take a look at it if we have more money. Or
Any
whatever.
comments to that
Wouldn't a one,
suggestion?
wouldn't a one, lost my
One
train of
step or
thought.
whatever.
One step?
Yeah,
Take care of that?
I'm not sure.
Go ahead, John.
This isn't, in my opinion, the place to make this type of decision.
Okay.
This is an extraordinarily complex subject. you'll see that the firefighters are shown at 101.2%, not the 102% that they have said in the letter to you. The firefighters disagree with that number, but this says that it's 101.2%. I just don't see how anybody can make that decision with that factual information compared to, let's not do anybody, the police officers, for example. I mean, I don't know what to suggest, but just I know that this isn't the place to do this.
Well, can we take another look at it and not do it?
We can certainly take another look at this and,
Okay.
So now we're changing
I think that we,
everything.
I know, let's
Sorry, I
get it,
can't
I think this is
support
one, can you just
Well,
nod
Gary,
your,
you wouldn't support it anyway.
I don't see a consensus on this, let me go around, do you want, to start all over?
I still want a one times across the board raise.
And then that would take care of
It'd
everything.
take care of it.
It would.
Take care of everything. So,
I think,
Okay.
I think we have to do the one step and look at the two steps. Like I said, I wanted it more condensed, and I think what Council Member Campbell said that, and I agree, and I said this as well, that maybe we need to look systemic, get a committee
You said that
together.
the construction
I
of
think
it
we
all.
need to reconstruct the whole. I think it's broken, but I don't think we can fix it in one meeting. But we got to get something in there to at least fix it, and then go back and reconstruct. So we are there.
Councilman Gelser?
I don't think we're HR experts, and I don't want to be human resources experts. And we have a professional staff that has recommended the increases over a 3-year period. And I've expressed my opinion of I want to see the first step go through. I would have loved to have been able to see we could do it all in 1 year. I don't think we can, but I think we'll be able to take year 2 and 3 and compress them into year 2 and fix this problem, and that's the way I would like to see it. If HR thinks that we should go to 8 steps instead of 16, hey, fine, bring a recommendation. We can look at that in a work session, but that's not our job.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes, go ahead.
If we find out after we do one step this year, and let's say we find that the firefighters have actually fallen behind, then can we add that step when we compress the next 2 steps? It sounds like we would like to make it a 2-step process if possible. Could we add that in the next year if they've fallen below, if we find out that actually has gone the wrong way with other cities?
Absolutely.
So we could quickly fix that next year.
Yes, we can. And I will tell you that as of right now, at least, I mean, and this is very preliminary still, cities are not planning increases this year across the board, systemic ongoing increases, at least on our discussions, except for El Mirage, I think.
Right.
Any other comments?
No, I feel good about our original discussion.
Yes, I did too.
So do I, but I'd like us to, keep looking at this to make sure.
Definitely.
One thing, though, that I would like to add, though, is I would still like us to pursue, and whether it's grant money or whatever, to put more beat officers on,
Absolutely.
patrol officers out
need
there.
more.
The studies I've seen, and my view is that we're understaffed as far as beat officers are concerned. And I know we don't have the money to hire right now. What I'm hoping is maybe through some grants or maybe there's some funding, other different funding we have out there. But I really would love to see us find a way to put more patrol officers on the streets.
John,
So-
didn't we discuss that? We discussed that at the last meeting because we talked about the shopping center and the things that are coming up.
Yes.
And so we were trying to be proactive in preparing us for that. So
Yes,
is that
and we
been
are
on
taking
the
up- yes,
agenda?
yes, it is.
That's what I
Matt, I
thought.
would appreciate that. Thank you.
Is there any money in the budget that if we got a grant and it's a match grant, that we could hire these officers and then have money to do this?
Well, I mean, there's $250,000 from a council initiative standpoint, plus there's monies we can, we always seem to be able to find monies to match grants if we have to.
We have 10 million budgeted for grants, John, that we haven't
I know, but
allocated.
that's like the 55
Gilzer,
million.
Okay,
Mr.
but
Gilzer,
I'm
would you
just
speak in the
saying, if we get
microphone?
money,
If we get the money, we can spend it, yes.
Right.
So if we do go for a grant for the police department and it's a match grant, then we'll be able to find the money.
I believe so, yes.
Well, that's
Okay.
like last year when we tried for the Cox grant.
Right.
That's
And we did not
didn't get it.
qualify.
right,
And there's getting to be less grants.
right. I
Okay.
understand.
Okay, but because we do need we need more officers on the street, and we need more school resource officers.
I don't think anybody questions that at all. One time we know we need another crime unit. We know we need for the shopping center. We know we need for the schools. I think we're all on the same boat on that one. I think there's no. And I think, John, this is probably wraps this up.
I think so. Thank you very much.
What we're going to have to do, before I do, I just have a little something I want to tell you about, but we're going to be going into special session. So I'll adjourn this, and then I'll call for the special session, and then we're going to take a break, okay, before that. Because I thank you all. I think it was a good discussion. It was much like a conversation tonight. Did you feel like you're around your kitchen table more over than around this table? And I think we gained a lot from it. The only thing I want to share with you is, and I'm sharing this with you because we often talk about the Art Council and what they're doing and how important it is. And you see, we didn't give any money to it this year, but I want to give some kudos to Alex Cole. He asked me to show up at the West Star Elementary School Friday night for a broadcast that they were doing. And so Ron and I went, and what it was about, it was a group of 5th and 6th graders. And what they did is they had an opportunity to make a 2-minute animated short film. And Alex, you know, that's his career. He puts it into cartoon form. So what they did is they took their science, math, and their social studies classes, and they drew characters in color with props and backgrounds, and they had to take some type of story and some famous person. And they put this together, they drew them and they colored them and they did the whole thing. And then he took this, all this information and the stories that they created, and he animated it. So Friday night, they had movie night at the school. So Ron and I went up for the movie night, and the pre to the movie night was 2 stories done by the children, animated on screen. I have to say, he did this at no cost for these children, and that's part of our Arts Council. And the next time you see him, you pat him on the back for doing that, because what a lesson that was in Pixar for the children to see that transition, and the future and the creativity of this was incredible. So I just give kudos to him, and please give him a call, send him an email, tell him thanks. It was just great, and Ron and I enjoyed it immensely. Okay, so we're going to adjourn this meeting, and then 5 minutes, okay, into our special meeting. Meeting adjourned. We'll call the special meeting now, and then we'll take a 5-minute break.
There you go.
Thank you.